It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
On this edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast, we take a deep dive into the college football playoff semifinal games between Alabama and Notre Dame and Ohio State and Clemson. And we give you a preview of the upcoming national championship game with some uncertainty that the game might get postponed. We give you a full breakdown of Week 17 along with the NFL playoff picture, getting you set for Wild Card Weekend. All that plus my interview with Alex Flum of WDVM. All that and so much more. But before we begin, we would like to thank our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, where they do the honeydews that your honey don't, PM Plus Reserves, and Shenandoah Primitives. Big thanks, as always, to MPT Now Productions, Dave Johnson, and Productions by Quet for all of their support as well. All right. Let's get you set for another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. It's coming your way right now.
Glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby, on Sports Podcast.
All right. Welcome into another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. As always, sponsored by Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, and Shenandoah Primitives. Big thanks, as always, to MPT Now Productions, Dave Johnson, and Productions by Quet for all their support as well. Gentlemen, we have a very exciting show, and you'll love to hear the panel we have on to break down the college football semifinal games and Week 17 in the National Football League. As always, we have Dan Dembski. Dan, what's up, my man?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just trying to get through the day, man. Working from home.
Absolutely, man. We're glad to have you. Next, as part of our panel, Carlos Martinez. You've heard him before. Carlos, how about them Cowboys?
No, we're not talking about the Cowboys at all whatsoever. They stink. All right. And I'm glad that they lost because they didn't deserve the playoffs. But, you know.
And our last and final member of our panel to make it a four-man booth tonight. He's been on the show, but not for a while. DC sportsman and everything in between, Clarence Smith. Clarence, how are you, sir? Glad to have you on the show today.
I'm good, Kirby. I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah. Great to have you. We're excited. So let's enough with the pleasantries. Let's get started. We have two college football playoff games that we need to discuss. We have Alabama, Notre Dame. First and foremost, I mean, that game was pretty obvious that, Alabama just was the better team. And we all knew that from the start. And then we have Ohio State upsetting. I would say an upset because I thought Clemson would put up more points, but Ohio State, a huge performance. So, Clarence, I know you as an Ohio State fan, you'll be chiming in a little bit, but whoever wants to take this away, let's just start with Alabama, Notre Dame, whatever we have on our chests about that, because I know it might not be much.
I mean, Notre Dame sucked. That's about it. They had nothing for Alabama. They had nothing.
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective, I've been around a lot longer than you guys have. It's amazing how much publicity Notre Dame gets seemingly year in and year out. It's almost as if the TV audience that follows them wills them into the national conversation for, the top 10 or so teams, and always a threat for the college playoff. But they really haven't been a formidable team for decades now, and it seems like in recent history, every time they enter a big game, not only do they not come through with a victory, but they get shellacked, and it's pretty lopsided. Of course, we had the 2 games against Alabama, this most recent one with Clemson. It just doesn't bode well, and it's hard to imagine that year after year they're going to continue to get, the nod to get into these college football playoff series, only to, roll over on their stomachs and play dead.
I mean, do you think that so that's an interesting perspective on it, that like their fans like kind of will them into it, because that sounds a lot like kind of like the Cowboys, how like they're always in the national like spotlight. Like that's actually a very, very great like comparison right there. But it just feels like whenever they get in the big game, they just don't perform. You go back to ACC championship, you go to this game, you go a couple years ago in the same exact game in the semifinal against freshman Trevor Lawrence. They got shellacked in that one. And then, of course, you can go all the way back to, what was it, the 2012, 2013 national championship game against Alabama. It just feels like, I don't know. It just feels like, how do they keep getting in these positions and then just don't show up?
Well, so we understand that the BCS and college sports in general are huge revenue makers. So when you have a national audience like Notre Dame does, Catholics everywhere follow Notre Dame, right? And Notre Dame being one of the blue blood original, college football programs, with such a storied history, it makes sense that you would want to put them on television and tap into all that national interest. But, for the casual observer and for people who haven't been invested into this program, it's hard to jump on board and make new fans when, you're constantly looking like you were overmatched and outclassed in these big games.
Do you think that, so obviously we saw Notre Dame's performance, and obviously now we know that they really had no business really being in the college football playoff. And the fact that they beat Clemson somehow earlier in the season, despite the fact that Clemson was missing a whole bunch of key players, do you think that Texas A&M would have put up a better performance, or Cincinnati?
Well, my personal opinion, it's hard for me to go with Texas A&M. As a Buckeyes fan, there was a lot of talk about maybe Texas A&M leapfrogging Ohio State to get into that. But remember, Texas A&M saw Alabama face to face, and I believe that was a 38-point Alabama victory. So, it wasn't, and also in Notre Dame's defense, Alabama is a very good team. So I don't mean to just, indict them because of one performance against Alabama, but again, when you consider their recent history, they seem to always be overhyped and overrated. And I think that that's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I think that that's the best way to kind of put it, that they are very overhyped and overrated. Like, I mean, aside from winning that Clemson game earlier in the season, again, with a bunch of Clemson's key players not playing in that game, Ian Book it felt like throughout his whole entire college career, never felt like he could ever win the big one. And it's just a thing that sticks with Notre Dame now. Can they ever win the big one? And It's clear that they can't.
Right.
So let's talk some numbers here, boys. For Ian Book, 27th for 39, 229 yards and 1 interception. For Alabama, Mac Jones, 25 for 30. He looked pretty good throughout the game from what I could watch. About 300 yards almost and 4 touchdowns. And I have to say the run game was dominated by Najee Harris for Alabama. And obviously, if you have a good passing game and a good running game, which Alabama had, you're going to win this football game. And that's exactly what Alabama did. Not to anybody's surprise, but still, that it was all around good football play by the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not much really to say about this game, honestly. Alabama just played pretty much they just played Alabama football. They just dominated. There's just not really much to say. Notre Dame just didn't have anything for them.
Yeah, dominated early on, used their Heisman weapons, and just kind of snowballed from there, and Notre Dame just couldn't come back. And Yeah, I think Notre Dame had a pretty easy path through the ACC. Obviously, you could say Clemson did too. And
I mean, it's clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alabama was clearly the better team from start to finish. So, they definitely belong in the national championship for sure.
Yeah, so let's move on to a more interesting game, so to speak. For you, obviously, Clarence, you were probably jumping up and down, screaming for your Buckeyes once again. But Clemson putting only 28 points up on the board against Ohio State. Ohio State, Justin Fields with 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and Trey Sermon about almost 200 yards rushing on the ground. And what really surprised me about Clemson, their star running back, Travis Etienne, only had 32 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Etienne's one of the greatest running backs in Clemson's history. And, he couldn't get going. And that's why I think you saw Trevor Lawrence have to throw it nearly 50 times in this game, which is something he's going to have to get used to next year for whatever team he ends up playing for, because they're going to be throwing a lot. But, yeah, probably Jacksonville.
It's going to be Jacksonville.
You never know, man. Draft day, weird stuff happens. But, yeah, it's probably going to be Jacksonville. But, this game was really, in my idea, over at halftime when it's 35-14. So
I mean, listen, it all came down to that second quarter. Yep. Ohio State just completely demolished Clemson in that second quarter.
Yeah.
21-0. And it was in the second quarter that what's his name? Stefanski, right? Yeah, that he got ejected from the game.
The
right?
hit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Do we agree that was a targeting call? Because I don't think it was.
Look, he lowered the crown of the helmet.
But it wasn't helmet to helmet. Isn't targeting helmet to helmet?
But it doesn't have to be helmet to helmet. If he leads with the crown of his helmet, it's targeting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much I know about college football, because I thought targeting was head to head.
Well, that's normally when it's called, is when it's head to head. And this was a targeting call. They made the right call. Do I think it's kind of, I mean, what I really want to focus on, though, is Justin Fields' performance, because this dude lit it up, and I was super, super impressed. After having kind of an off day in the Big Ten championship, to come back out and just light it up the way he did, oh my God, that was and then not only that hit was nasty. That targeting hit, that was really bad. I really thought he was done for the day. I did. I thought it hit him in the hip. I thought he broke his hip or his ribs, something.
Yeah, it looked terrible.
And it looked bad when every time he came off the field. But this dude just went out and just said, "I don't care," and just Justin Fields shot up a lot on my board. I was like, I really, obviously we know Jacksonville's going to take Trevor. If I was the Jets, I would take Justin Fields for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just the toughness, like you said, to be able to keep going out there, and he kept getting hit in the same area too, and that's the other thing.
With all that padding too.
Yeah, and he still got hit hard, but he kept getting up and kept shaking it off. I was like, man, after every hit, it's just like.
So it was a pretty remarkable performance. He accounted for over 420 yards, 6 touchdowns. He had as many touchdown passes as he did incompletions on the game. And early in the season, he was on that same kind of pace in the first 3 games. He had as many touchdown passes as he did in completions. And then he kind of went cold there for a while and had a few games, particularly against Indiana and against Northwestern, in which he struggled. So as a Buckeyes fan, the Buckeye Nation wasn't sure exactly which Justin Fields we were going to get. So it was nice to see early on, Clemson goes up with that 7-0 lead with the Trevor Lawrence run on the outside there in the red zone. And you're like, okay, we're about to find out which Justin Fields is going to show up. And from that very first possession, he looked more like the Justin Fields from last year and Justin Fields from the first 3 games this season. And, as a fan of the Buckeyes, you immediately gain confidence. From an X's and O's standpoint, it was a really interesting game plan. you got to understand there's a little bit of a history between Ohio State and Clemson.
A lot.
Clemson was undefeated in prior meetings, and most recently, of course, in the BCS playoffs last year, the big interception Justin Fields threw at the end of the game, in which Chris Olave kind of broke off his post pattern. The Ohio State Buckeyes put that score in their weight room, and it kept it on the television screen the entire offseason. So, listening to Ryan Day talk about it the all offseason, they've been waiting for another opportunity at Clemson, and lo and behold, fate determined that they're going to meet again the very next year, and they had been game planning the entire year. If you watch some of these clips, typically Ohio State will come out, they give the false clap, and then everyone on the offense stands up and looks to the sideline for the next play, and then they go back into it. And from the time that they meet the line of scrimmage, there's as much as 10 to 15 seconds before the ball is actually snapped. In that Clemson game, they were coming out of the huddle, which they usually don't do. They huddled way more, went straight to the line, snapped the ball, and it seemed to catch Clemson off guard repeatedly. If you watch some of these plays, the snap of the ball, and you have linebackers in the middle of the defense that are practically touching each other, and the ends aren't covered. In particular, the Trey Sermon touchdown run early in the first quarter. I mean, Clemson completely out of place, and I think it shocked them. And then one of the things that's underrated with the Buckeyes defense is their ability to shut down a running game. So, taking ETN away from Clemson, it made them more one-dimensional, and you like your chances anytime you get to play a team and they can only do one thing against you. Now, obviously, it's going to be very challenging to try to take Najee Harris out of there. And even if you can, certainly Devontae Smith is an upgrade over Powell. So it'll be interesting to see, what this matchup brings, if we get to see it on Monday.
Yeah, because the game is still technically in question right
now. That was my next point. Going from this game to the national championship, this might get pushed back due to COVID. A lot, I believe, some Ohio State players have tested positive for COVID, and this game might be in question.
Yeah. So interestingly, Ohio State doesn't give COVID information. They just tell the amount of students that are out, and they try to wait as long as they possibly can. I guess playing some of these mind games, but pretty obvious. When you follow them, you knew that Chris Olave just came off of COVID, got cleared just before he was able to play in that playoff game against Clemson. But the rumor is that they may be an entire position group out. As you guys are aware, in this COVID era, contact tracing. If you're in the quarterback's room, for instance, every single quarterback on that roster was also in that room. So you're out your complete quarterback position group, or call it the linebackers or the corners or whatever it may be. And it'd be pretty tough if this game ends up being played on Monday if you're without an entire position group, whether it's your defensive line, offensive line, whatever it may be. Now, to this point,
your wide receivers, your running backs.
Yeah, exactly. To this point, the AD at Ohio State, Gene Smith, says that we're all systems go. So it's hard to weed through the subterfuges and figure out how much of this is misinformation, how much of it, there's of course, Nick Saban's daughter tweeted out saying that this was just Ohio State's efforts to try to allow Justin Fields more time to heal up. You don't know exactly what is happening until probably Monday morning when it's decided, if not this weekend, whether or not we're going to play and who's going to miss.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy times we live in. Like, we obviously saw it with Denver earlier in the season in the NFL, where they had no quarterbacks. They had to bring a wide receiver off the practice squad to play quarterback.
And then the Saints
having no running backs. Luckily, that didn't affect them too much. Yeah. But, we haven't actually seen a whole position. Like, that's not true. At least, like, at this, I guess kind of at this point, we haven't seen, like, what happens if a whole position group does get taken out during the college football playoff.
Well, the college football championship, the penultimate. Yeah. So you're not talking a regular season game like the Broncos and like the Saints, not even just a playoff game, but the championship game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were speaking earlier about Notre Dame and how much of a nod did they get and favoritism do they get because of their national following. It is a money-making business. Is it in the best interest of the BCS to run a championship game if one team is missing an entire position group? It'll be interesting to see if they come in.
It wouldn't, especially because, again, like, this is for the national championship. And I understand, like, Alabama's reasoning for, like, why they should play this game is because, well, hey, we did everything right. Our players are ready to go. It should be considered a competitive advantage at that point. But to me, it's just like, listen, this is for all the marbles. You guys have worked all season, and especially in this tough year, don't you want to have the best version of Ohio State and the best version of Alabama out there? That's what I would want, especially because how great these two teams are when they're at full strength.
Well, maybe Alabama doesn't. That's the reason why
Yeah.
they keep saying that. Maybe they don't want to face Ohio State because they
Oh,
saw
so-
what they did to Clemson.
Maybe Nick Saban's scared.
Hold on.
Well,
Dan
he's
Dempsey, are
he's
you
shooting.
going on
He's
the
shoot.
record right now saying
He's shooting an
that
Aflac
Alabama is
commercial. What?
afraid? So are you?
I
afraid
said maybe. I'm speculating, but
Are you saying Alabama's afraid of Ohio State?
No, to back up Dan, I think what he's saying is that Ohio State is formidable enough at other positions that they would still present a challenge. We can go back to 2014 in the BCS championship and remember the third string quarterback for Ohio State, Cordell Jones.
That's right, Cordell Jones.
Yeah, upset Alabama in that playoff game. So when you're talking about these elite programs, there are 4 and 5 star kids everywhere. So if one guy is out, that doesn't mean necessarily that your entire team is gone. Even like when Trevor Lawrence was out, they still gave Notre Dame. They took him to overtime, because there are 4 and 5 star guys everywhere on Clemson's squad. So I think that Alabama is respecting Ohio State enough to say, if we can get a competitive advantage, we'll certainly take it. Because they're still going to be dangerous.
All right, absolutely. Couldn't
Yeah,
have said
that's
it better
fair.
myself.
Yeah, that's fair.
maybe scared wasn't the right word to use. Maybe a competitive advantage was a better term. But yeah, I definitely think I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe Nick Saban just wants to shoot another Aflac commercial or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
Could
I
be.
bet
That could
you
be
they
what
pay
it
him.
is.
I bet you they pay him very handsomely.
And he's the worst actor ever. But yeah.
Now, let
He's
me ask
really
you guys.
bad.
Let me ask you guys this. Being new to the panel, the guest speaker here, there's a sentiment out that says that the average college football fan is tired of seeing Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson in these playoffs year in and year out. Are you all of that like mind, or are you kind of like, these are the elite programs, these are where the best recruits are choosing to go? I want to see the best version of college football I can see.
I'm tired of Alabama, period, because the panel is full of biased people who just pick 4 teams, and it's like, you
Come
never get a
on.
shot.
Kirby.
They're the
It's
4 best
crazy.
teams.
Kirby.
No, okay,
You can
but
only
still,
pick 4
Alabama,
teams.
Alabama gets a free pass every single year.
Alabama's
that is
one of the
not true.
best teams year in
Yeah.
and year
Not-
out.
Yeah,
Come
Kirby,
on,
I
man.
wouldn't call it free.
Yeah,
they
Kirby. I
perform on
wouldn't.
the field.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
still,
Craziness.
I don't really mind Ohio State, but I mean
You're
Alabama.
just saying that because
I'm tired of them being in it. I don't care. That's my reasoning. I think the panel's biased. We need
They're
to get
in the best
panel.
conference too. You got to consider that too.
Listen.
the
I
SEC
feel
is
like
still
the
the best
panel
conference.
needs to be unbiased. Just a bunch of random people who
Even
just
if-
watch these games but don't lean towards one or the other and say, okay,
come on,
who do
that's-
we
Kirby,
think?
Kirby. Okay. The question was, are you tired of the same of basically the big 3, Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State? Are you tired of them 3 always being in, or just them all? Basically, it's always a guaranteed. Those are probably going to be your 3 teams. Yes, I know I'm kind of tired.
Yeah,
of it. I would
I'm
like to see some
tired
more
of
diversity.
Alabama. Sort
No.
of with Clemson.
Hold on. Let me finish my point. Kirby. All right.
It's getting heated up in here, ladies and gentlemen.
So we had this discussion when they announced the teams for who were going to get in the college football playoff. I do think that 4 teams was a good start, but they should have had a plan to start slowly expanding it. Be like, okay, we're going to do 4 teams for this certain amount of time. That way we can, work the kinks and wrinkles out in the system. After said maybe like 3-4 years of doing this, then we're going to expand to maybe 6 or 8, and then start maybe eventually get up to maybe 16 if you want to get that far. But I feel like by doing only these, only having these 3 teams, that's where all the top recruits are going to go. So there's not as much competition in the rest of the conference per se. Look at the ACC. Look at how much. Look at how depleted it is talent-wise, because all the talent's going to Clemson because Clemson's the only ACC team that's getting in. Same thing with, Alabama. Yeah, I guess you could say Alabama. A lot of the recruits go to Alabama. Ohio State has, the Big Ten, by the neck.
Yeah.
The 4th team is usually, who knows who the 4th team usually is, but we always know it's either going to be Clemson, Ohio State, or Alabama that's going to win this national championship.
Yeah, as far as the current system, those are the 4 best teams. Absolutely, but I do think people are generally getting tired of that. But that's not going to change until the playoff expands. That's the bottom line. These are the most talented teams, and not just talent with, excuse me, the top players. If you're looking at depth, I mean, these teams are the most deep teams in college football,
Yeah,
no doubt,
that's true.
from top to bottom. So, they belong in the college football playoff. Now, I do think it should be expanded. I think especially as we see the years go on, where we see more teams on the fringe, people at least claim that could compete with the Alabamas of the world. I don't know how true that is or not. I think the only way to find out is to expand the playoff and let these games happen. So
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point, because I feel like they need to expand it to at least 8. I would say 8 to start, but I would like
I think
to see
8's
it
good.
get bigger than 8, because who knows? You could have a team that upsets, like if you're doing like a 16-1, just for example, you could have an upset, because college football, we have seen upsets before.
Yeah, and I've talked about this in the past. I mean,
anything can happen.
This would help with competition too. You would have more recruits spread out, and play at some of those more fringe schools, because there's a sense that, hey, if we're the 7th seed or we're the 8th seed, we still have a shot at winning the national championship. That's not out of the question. So, I think that's something too to think about. But I think right now in the current system, that people are just going to have to suck it up and accept that these are the best teams from top to bottom.
Now, my personal opinion is a playoff expansion would be nice, but with a caveat. You're currently in a regular season, in order to make it to the BCS championship, you would have it would be your 14th game. You play a 12-game regular season, you would have to win a playoff game for 13, and then the 14th game. That is just 2 games shy of a professional NFL schedule. And I think that if you're going to be talking about expanding playoffs, then you've got to make sure that you're paying these kids, because you're asking them to put their bodies in danger, their futures in danger, in jeopardy. And I think that we started to see some of this slow rollout in these last couple of years. But if you're going to be talking about expansion of these playoffs, then college football needs to just, go ahead and bite the bullet and understand and admit that the NCAA is a racket. That these kids, it's almost like, they're being exploited. Because the NCAA is making so much money off of them, and then if they have one tiny infraction, their entire amateur career can be, ripped from underneath them. So,
that's true.
And
i.e. Terrell Pryor, i.e. Place insert name here. That's what it is. I agree 100%. If we're gonna expand this, and if you expand, you're gonna be making, a crap ton of money, off of the expansion. For sure, the players deserve a cut of that.
I mean, just think of March Madness. How much money does the NCAA bring in for that? And they don't. Obviously, the players aren't paid. So I think that's a good point, Clarence. I think it's something you have to consider, because it gets to a point where it's beyond corrupt for the NCAA to continue doing this and just and not giving the players any sort of compensation at all. So
nothing.
It's crazy.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on. Ohio State versus Alabama. Let's get some predictions here, starting with you, Clarence.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Okay.
I thought we should have left them last, but
I'll go first. It really is going to come down to what is determined with this COVID outbreak. Obviously, like if they're without a position group, then I think that the favor is going to be tilted heavily toward Alabama's side of the table. If hopefully all things are even and everyone's at full strength, I really, and of course I am biased, I really think that there's an opportunity for Ohio State to be successful against Alabama. Alabama's defense is not as vaunted as some of those Alabama teams in the past. Twice to the only 2 formidable offenses that they faced this year, they gave up over 46 points. You can move the ball on them, and you have one of the most prolific quarterbacks in college football, taking snaps under center for Ohio State. And right now, Trey Sermon is as hot as Najee Harris, over these last couple of games. You, of course, at the Ohio State all-time school record in the Big Ten championship against Northwestern, he ran for over 330 yards. And then he followed that with 200 against Clemson. There's formidable pieces both at the center and at the running back spot. And then you've got 2 of the most dynamic receivers with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Now, granted, there's talk about Waddle coming back for Alabama, and now all of a sudden you've got Devontae Smith and Waddle at the same time. They match up really, really well, and this should be an exciting playoff game. But of course, our championship game. But of course, if Ohio State is down a position group, then all of that's out the window.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think you're going to see the line continue to shift because right now it's Alabama -8, and of course with COVID and things like that, they have a heavy advantage at the moment should they play this game, but on time. I mean, I know they're going to play this game eventually, no matter when they decide to change it to. But yeah, I think that was a great point. Alabama is just so stacked. I mean, anytime you have three guys that are Heisman candidates on one team on one offense, it's just mind-boggling. But I think you're right about their defense, Clarence. They're definitely susceptible to giving up the big play. And Ohio State, I don't think Justin Fields gets enough credit for his deep balls. I think he can really throw the ball well down the field. So I do think this game's going to be close. I think Justin Fields makes the difference, and I feel like he throws a late touchdown pass and sort of makes up for the last pass of his season last year. So I'm taking Ohio State. I think it's going to be a close game, but like I said, I think it falls on Justin Fields and he comes up big.
So we got what, 2 Ohio States?
Yeah, I'm for Ohio State as well. I think Justin Fields is going to go off yet again.
We got 3 Ohio States.
Yep. So I'm for Ohio State in this game. It's going to be a close one, and if they don't postpone this game, the lines will continue to shift. But I think it's going to be a relatively close game, and Ohio State takes it.
Well, then it looks like I have to take Alabama since somebody on this panel has to. I'll take Alabama, but I will not be surprised if Ohio State wins. Like I said, Justin Fields really, really, really impressed me. And if that Justin Fields shows up against Alabama, I have no doubt that they can beat Alabama.
Yep, I agree.
There's no doubt in my mind. So it just depends on which Justin Fields shows up. And because we know what Mac Jones, he's a reliable quarterback.
Yeah.
He gets the job done. And they obviously got their Heisman winner, and then they got Najee Harris in the backfield, and then if they do get Waddle back, but how Waddle hasn't played since, oh my God, when did he get injured?
I
don't remember.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
So even if Waddle comes back, how much of an impact is he going to make? He's going to be rusty for sure. So who knows how much he's going to be able to do. And don't forget, Alabama is playing without their starting center still. Yeah. So we'll see how much, and against Notre Dame, maybe it doesn't affect you that much, but we'll see how much it affects them against a defense like Ohio State's defense. Yeah,
and you got Trey Sermon too. I mean, you got to watch out for this guy. He's a guy who almost had 200 rushing yards.
That's the thing.
Against Clemson.
Ohio State and Alabama kind of feel almost like identical copies of each other right now.
They are very similar in a lot of position groups for sure. So,
all right,
it's crazy.
So let's move on. That was our college football discussion. We still have a jam-packed show for you. Let's dive into Week 17, one of the best weeks of the National Football League season, because everything falls into place, and there are multiple games on. Sunday Ticket was rolling on both my TVs, so it was a pretty great day watching all those games. So, gentlemen, I want to start. We'll save sort of the best for last. So let's start with the not-so-best.
Josh, I'm pretty sure we all got thoughts about that game.
Josh, yeah, do you mind if we do Washington? I'm going to have to run, so I won't be able to stay for the entire thing. Can we do the Washington-Philly thing first?
Yeah, that's what I said. We're going to talk about the NFC Least first. That's what I was in the middle of.
Sorry.
The way he worded that was not good.
Yeah.
For a second, I was like, oh, we're going to talk about you even have it last on the rundown.
Okay. So I thought, so this will be put in our bloopers cuts for next year. So I just messaged it in the Zoom. I assumed you all got it, but I guess not.
I don't have Zoom pulled up. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
sent that message.
There it is.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
All right. So, gentlemen, the NFC Least. Ooh, wow. What a game. First off, New York over Dallas really quickly, because I know it could have meant something if Washington were to lose, but I mean, Dallas just did not look good, and New York. I mean, Carlos, I know you rescinded your fanhood from Dallas, but I
I
assume
did, but they pulled me in for this game. I was watching, but I was kind of in my, I was in my thoughts. I was like, please don't do this. Like, they don't deserve the playoffs. Like, they haven't done anything. Like, I don't want them in.
Yeah, so I couldn't believe New York played so well, and
Yeah, they look good.
but then coming down to the end of the game, Wayne Gallman fumbles, and I mean it was a sloppy game all the way around, and they almost gave the game to Dallas, but Wayne Gallman surprisingly covered up the ball, and they were able to run the clock out and eliminate Dallas from the playoffs. And
well, you're forgetting about the part where Andy Dalton, the red rifle, threw that typical Dallas interception that they always do at the end of a game.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I saw that ball go up, I was like, oh, that's a pick.
And no touchdown passes for the red rifle. So
none
what a
whatsoever.
shame.
And you got all those you got all those weapons, and you can't do anything with it.
They do. They certainly do.
It's okay. We'll get Ertz in the offseason.
There you go.
Well, do we have any thoughts on this game, Clarence? I know you're big into the NFC Least, and I know you're a Washington fan, but were you watching this game closely?
No, not at all. I could care less about either team.
Thank you.
And I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the next version of the NFC Least. Got flexed to Sunday night, Washington versus Philly. Oh my gosh. I was starting this game. I was like, man, Alex Smith coming out, great first drive, throws it to scary Terry McLaurin back the end zone. That was great. But then Washington just stopped. It looked like there was nothing happening, no production whatsoever.
I think the play calling got stale pretty quickly after those first couple drives.
Yeah, I'd say. And
it kind of felt like it almost felt like Washington was trying to lose the game sometimes.
Trying to give it away.
They gave Philadelphia so many opportunities.
They gave it to them on a silver platter sometimes. I was like, how the hell is this game even still like this right now?
And Washington ends up winning. The Philadelphia Eagles put in their backup. I'm like, what is going on here?
So a couple of things when you're watching that game, it was pretty evident that Alex Smith still isn't at full strength, and it impacted the offense tremendously. I don't know that he threw a pass beyond 15 yards of the line of scrimmage.
No.
So it allowed the Philadelphia defense to start packing in. He threw two interceptions, one that was backed up deep in our own territory that turned into Jalen Hurts' second touchdown run. So there were times where Alex Smith looked to be the liability on the team. He couldn't escape the pocket to extend any kind of plays. There were several times he missed Cam Sims in the end zone on one play that he ended up deciding to throw away in the flats. It was clear that he's still hobbled, and that doesn't look good moving into this game against Tampa Bay, who has a very good defense. But I gotta address the whole, taking out Jalen Hurts and putting in Nate Sudfeld, who, by the way, was originally drafted by Washington. Listen, it's not like Jalen Hurts was putting up 300 yards of total offense. He was something like, well, actually, I have it here. Hold on. It's 7 of 20 passing for 72 yards. Okay. Now, granted, he did score twice on the ground, but and one of those was turned over early, and he's still 8 carries for 34 yards. So it's not like, he was averaging less than 5 yards a carry. He was average, 7 of 20 passing. That's 35% completion rate. So when that move was made by Peterson, at first, from the optics, of course, it looks like Jalen Hurts looks like he gives you a better chance. But I don't know that it was necessarily one of those things where it was such a travesty. And at the end of the day, if you're Philadelphia, would you rather have the 9th pick or the 6th pick?
Well, I thought it was the 10th pick that was up for grabs there. If they won, I thought they got the 10th pick.
No, it was the
if they
9th
lost, they got
or
the
the
6th.
6th I saw towards the end of the game. But I don't want to say the Philadelphia Eagles purposely tanked, but I was very surprised. And Joe Judge, the Giants head coach, had some comments afterwards about that, saying,
well, listen,
he needs to shut the hell up, man.
With the Giants, listen.
You finished 6-10. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Win more than 6 games and then come talk to me. Just because this was your, the NFC East just stunk this year. Okay, so it's a miracle that you were even in contention at 6-10. Okay, but don't sit there and complain and be like, oh, this is a travesty. Win more games and
Yep.
then you can talk.
That's exactly
Okay?
what I said on
You know
social
who-
media.
You know who has a better argument? The Miami Dolphins, who are
Yeah.
10, who they finished 10-6,
10-6, and they missed the
can't get
playoffs.
in.
Yep.
You know, like, get the hell out of here, man.
Yeah, he's a moron. So that's all I have to say about him. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Tampa matchup coming up.
Oh my. Oh my. So I was trolling everybody on Twitter saying we're going all the way because Washington
Naturally.
won the East, and I was but I know for a fact we're gonna get smoked by 60. Alex Smith, I mean, he's not healthy. I don't know how mobile he's gonna be. I've heard reports
He's not
saying,
mobile.
No, he's not. He's not mobile the way he used to be.
No, I understand that, but I mean, limited mobility in the pocket and stuff, but
Right.
still, yeah, I hear reports saying they might flip around QBs, Alex Smith and Taylor Heineke, to try to get things moving. I'm not sure, but you have Ndamukong Suh on that defense. That's going to be tough. Tampa's defense looks good. Tom Brady has weapons to throw to, but I mean, I know Chase Young has an opportunity. He wants to sack Tom Brady. I think he's thirsty enough to at least get one sack on Tom Brady. So Washington's D-line against Tom Brady, who really isn't that mobile of a quarterback either, could help, but still, I think Tampa's the dominant team, and I mean, our quarterback situation's still up in the air. So that's my thoughts on Washington versus Tampa, but I really think Tampa has it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Kirby. Like, the thing with Tom Brady is if you can get pressure on him, that gives you the best shot at winning because he doesn't play very well under pressure. And we've seen it a lot this season. He just doesn't want to get hit. You know, he's an old man now. You know, he doesn't want to get hit. You know?
Well, listen. I think the spread is Tampa's a 2-score favorite right now, right? So even on the road, I think that their favorite, last I heard, was something like 8.5. So you know, if you're a betting man, I don't know that you don't take a shot at that line, because here's an opportunity. Like the last time that Tom Brady, you know, when you think about him struggling, you can go back to those 2 giant Super Bowls. And what did the Giants defense do? They could get pressure with the down 4. You can get pressure with the down 4, and that leaves 7 guys back in coverage. And when you look at the Washington defense right now, the strength of their defense is that defensive line. So, you know, if you could make a play here or there and get a turnover, Cameron Curl has been on fire. Of course, Montez Sweat and Montez Sweat and Chase Young continue to do their thing. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen push that pocket. So if you could get, you know, an early turnover or a couple of early, you know, flip the field and put your offense in position to score, turn this thing into an ugly kind of game, you know, where we can lean on Antonio Gibson. I'm not here to predict that it's going to be a win, but if you're a betting man, maybe those 8.5 points aren't necessarily, you know, guaranteed to you.
Well, and this is something else too. I mean, Brady's not a quarterback who generally, you know, gets the ball out super fast. You know, he's a guy who likes to stand back in the pocket, evaluate his options, and then make the decision. So, I mean, I think that bodes well for Washington's defensive line, especially, you know, how Chase Young has played like every week this season. He's been insane. So, I think that gives them a good chance to at least get pressure and maybe force a turnover or two. Now, the question on the other end is, you know, can the offense keep up? I think that's the main concern, especially, you know, Alex Smith's not healthy. His mobility obviously is not there. You know, they're really going to have to rely on the run first. And, you know, here in the past 3 or 4 weeks, the run hasn't been there for Washington. So Gibson had a nice game against the Eagles, 75 yards. But I mean, outside of that, they really need to get the run game going if they're going to have a chance, I think, on offense.
Do we have an update on Mike Evans' status for this game?
I heard he's questionable.
Yeah, he's still questionable. They know it's not severe.
Yeah, I know that last I heard there was no structural damage.
Correct. Yeah, but I don't know. Let me see if there's anything new today. I'll check and get back to you here.
So it was funny because I was reading social media after Washington won the division, and hands down, Ron Rivera, in all he has been through, you have the scandal, the post scandal, you have front office stuff going on, you have that whole mess. Ron Rivera comes down with cancer, beats cancer while coaching this football team, which at one point was 2-7. Then you most recently have the Dwayne Haskins situation and all this drama. and they end up winning a division. So I really think winning the division for Washington puts an explanation point next to Ron Rivera being the best coach for Washington in this situation. Washington has a young group of guys, and I think Ron Rivera is the best leader to build this team to better success.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at what he's been able to do, just leading by example. I mean, while battling cancer during COVID and still being on the sidelines for every game. And you saw at times, they showed him before games and after games where he'd have his head down and he was, drinking some Gatorade and getting off his feet. But, he, it's just impressive to say the least. Like he's overcome all odds and still able to coach a football team. So yeah, I definitely think he's the coach of the future. I think he did it. Look at what he was able to do in Carolina, take him to a Super Bowl. And, obviously that it didn't turn out too well, but he kind of turned them around. And I do think Washington has a base that they can build off of. And I think it starts with that defensive line. And so, yeah, I do think there's a pretty bright future for him in Washington.
Clarence, I know you have to run off early, so I want to get your last thoughts on that Ron Rivera. Your analysis of him over the course of 17 weeks for Washington with no preseason, limited training camp and stuff. Do you think he is the right man for Washington's future?
There was a time period where, I could have, questioned that, but I think over the course of this season, I think what he's proven without a shadow of a doubt that he's got this franchise heading in the right direction. I listened to player interviews, and they all talk about how they're playing selflessly now, playing for each other. They all have a common goal, and what else could you ask for out of a coach but to provide, structure and discipline? And without a doubt, that's what's happened so far. And like you guys were just talking about, the foundation's there. I think that they're a healthy, at least league average quarterback away from being a perennial contender. But that being said, the NFC East is going to get better next year. Dak Prescott's coming back. The Eagles are not going to stay hurt the entire time, and Jalen Hurts will probably be under center. The Giants, they'll get Saquon Barkley. Washington made strides this year, but they've got to keep doing that over the course of this offseason and preparing into next season, because they're not going to be the front runner. I don't even know that they'll be predicted to win it next year. It'll probably go back to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. So, this is
always
nice.
Projected to win it.
Yeah, that's very true. The Notre Dame of the NFL. Yeah,
the Notre Dame of the NFL. God,
America's team.
Except Notre Dame makes the playoffs. So.
Oh wow!
Bingo.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry,
man.
had to.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. It's fine. I take them all.
Clarence, we know you have to run, sir. So we appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks we couldn't get you on for the whole thing, but any little bit of time with you, really means a lot. And you should go out and work for ESPN one day, because you know a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You make me feel good every time I talk to you. So I appreciate
conversations.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, that's Clarence Smith for part of the show. I'm Josh, riding with me, Dan and Carlos still. So let's move on to some more exciting games, because I wanted to get the NFC Least out of the way first and foremost. Because I mean,
wait.
Yeah, hold on.
He wanted an update on Mike Evans, and he has not practiced. He didn't practice again today. So they still don't know the severity of his injury. They said there's no structural damage, but there's no other information. So, I'd say if he doesn't practice by tomorrow, it's not looking great that he plays. Maybe he plays in a limited role. I really don't know. I mean, they have other receivers. So
I was going to say they still have
not like it's the end of the world.
Godwin. Yeah, it's not like they don't. I mean, I'm not saying they don't need him and Gronk, and then of course you got Leonard Fournette and who's their other running back? His name is escaping me at the moment.
Me too, fam. Me too.
Yeah. So can I touch on one thing before we move on, though? I want to touch on one thing. I'm scrolling through social media after Washington wins the division, and Dan Dembski.
Oh boy, here we go.
All pissed off like the Ravens lost or something. I'm
I
like,
wasn't okay. Maybe I was. It was a knee-jerk reaction.
I mean, your reaction to this
Hold on,
game was
wait,
like the
wait.
Ravens lost or something, but it
Then
was
why were
two
you mad?
NFC East teams.
Why the hell did the Eagles leave Sudfeld in there after 4
Oh.
drives of just complete crap? And then on 2 straight drives, they turn the football over. I'm like, why do they still have him in there? You know, it's
So I haven't actually given my thoughts on that whole tanking thing. Yeah,
it's so stupid. What are you
yeah,
doing?
To me, it was just like okay, yeah, Jalen Hurts wasn't like lighting it up on the stat sheet or whatever.
But he was keeping them in the game.
Yeah, he was keeping them in the game. Like before he was taken out, they were it was a 4th and goal situation. He just missed the throw. Like you guys were still driving. They were still driving down the field. Not only that, didn't Philadelphia elect to go for it twice on 4th down?
Yes.
They could have kicked 2 field goals. They left 6 points on the board, and those 6 points would have resulted in at least a tie.
And they were both easy kicks, and the one was a 4th and goal, and they tried to tried to go for it.
I'm like, what are you doing? And
Just
then
take
when they put in their backup in, at first I'm thinking, okay, is Jalen hurt? Or are they just doing this because like what's up? And then of course Al Michaels and Chris Collins were just
They were confused as everyone else.
They completely eviscerated the Eagles.
As they should have.
Yeah, they should have. And of course, now they're in hot water with the NFL apparently. But it's like, what are you gonna do?
Please.
It's Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. They're the voice of Sunday Night Football. You're not going to do jack shit to them.
Oh my god!
It was the most NFC East thing I've seen all season, and the thing that made me most angry is the fact that it's a primetime game, and you have the Eagles pulling that shit. Now, if they keep Jalen Hurts in there and they lose, it's whatever. I'm happy for Washington. I still am happy that Washington won the division. I don't have anything. I don't have any. I know it seems like I'm pissed about it, but I'm more pissed at the Eagles because of they just seem to just Doug Peterson's like, well, I'm just gonna get fired tomorrow, so I'm just gonna go ahead.
And then he ended up not getting fired. And then there's reports coming out that like the players try to fight him on the sideline, that some players have to be held back. It's just like, man, like talk about a team that has truly fallen from the highest peak. Because don't forget, this is a team that beat Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl.
And God.
Now they can't. Now they're sitting there purposely taking out a quarterback that's giving you the best shot at winning. You're purposely tanking. And I understand, okay, you get a better draft position, but come on.
It's 3 spots. Come on.
And it's just like, what are you gonna do? Like, to me, it's time to, I think the Eagles, it's time to blow it up. It's time that team is gone. It's done. These players aren't going, I'm pretty sure Doug Peterson has lost this locker room.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's time to cut ties with everybody that was involved in the Super Bowl run.
Yep.
And it's time to move on. And I feel like the Eagles need to let go of Doug Peterson too, because ever since that Super Bowl, they haven't been good.
Yep, and the fact that he also sits there after the game and sort of doubles down and defends what he did, it just pisses me off because you're on Sunday Night Football, America watches that game. It's just a horrific display, and like I said, it's the most NFC East thing ever. It just was, and I'm not taking anything away from Washington. They've overcome a lot of strife this season, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think personally anyone deserved that division, but look, someone's got to win it, right? You can't just not have a division. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was pissed at the Eagles, and I was upset, and I did go off on Twitter, and I did spout off a little bit, and Kirby was like, and it helped that Kirby was like, not rubbing it in, but like saying, yeah, we're gonna win it all. I'm like, dude, just shut up. Come on.
Kirby was fanning the flames.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I was at the point where I'm like, we won the division, so I can talk and say, hey, we're going all the way. But I mean, I was just trolling everybody because I was like, I know for a fact we're not winning the Super Bowl. The Washington football team will not win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Kirby, you were one of the guys that back in 2015 when Kirk Cousins won the division for you guys.
Oh,
you
man.
were one of those guys talking about, we're going to the Super Bowl. I know that was you.
Oh, man. Yep. And we all know how that went.
I don't remember what happened.
All right. All right, let's move. Okay. Enough with the NFC Least. We have more Week 17 coverage to get to, but let's take a quick break and hear my conversation with WDVM sports reporter Alex Flum. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with you on the Kirby on Sports podcast. This segment will be up on the Kirby on Sports podcast YouTube page as well. Pleased to be joined by WDVM sports reporter Alex Flum. Alex, Happy New Year, buddy. How you doing?
Happy New Year, Josh. I am doing well. Excited for this new year, hoping that it'll be a little bit better than the last one, and very excited to be here on your podcast today.
Yeah, aren't we all looking forward to 2021 being a better year than the last year? So hopefully that will go well in terms of everything that's been going on. But still, we have sports in 2021, still not the same with COVID and everything. But first and foremost, before WDVM, you're not a stranger to this area. You've been down I-81 and you worked over at WHSV in Harrisonburg. So you have had the opportunity to work and cover local sports along with pro sports in our DC area sports teams and so on and so forth. So you've had a lot of experience everywhere. So tell us about some of your fond memories and moments of what you have covered that you have really enjoyed, from high school sports all the way up to pro sports.
Well, I think I'm first and foremost, I think I'd like to say how lucky I feel just to be, where I grew up in my hometown, covering sports here in the middle of a pandemic. So, I definitely don't take that for granted. I'm originally from Silver Spring, grew up there and in Rockville, went to the University of Maryland, got to cover a lot of great stuff there and with internships in college as well. And spent 2 years at WHSV in Harrisonburg, which I know is right down I-81 from you. And, that was really just a great experience for me because, in college, I got to go into the pro locker rooms and press boxes and things and cover all these big college sports. And I got to do a lot of JMU in Harrisonburg. But the big thing I got to do was high school sports coverage there in the Shenandoah Valley. And that's, something a lot of people overlook. It's important to cover high school sports. There's a lot of important stories there. I think it's something that a lot of TV stations should make important, and it's something that places are trying to do. And I know it's been tough this year with COVID, but I'm hoping that once things get a little bit better this year, maybe next year, whenever that point comes, that I'm going to be able to get some good high school coverage right here, in the immediate DC area, in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, especially Montgomery County, which is kind of my main coverage zone.
Yeah, obviously it's just a struggle with high school sports determining whether they're going to play and whatnot. Some areas in Virginia are playing, some are not. So it just all depends with the county and stuff. I believe up there in Maryland, they have still halted and they are not playing anything right now.
Yeah, I think since cases have been going up in the late fall and winter, they've been kind of erring on the side of caution. I know the plan was for fall sports to hopefully come back in February, so fall in the spring, which would be interesting. I think that's what they were aiming for. I'm not sure where they stand on that now, but I'm hoping that, with these vaccines continuing to roll out, hopefully cases will start going down, and then maybe we'll be able to see some football in the spring. And, I'm excited to cover some high school football. I got to do a little bit in West Virginia when I started with WDVM, but, that was like my bread and butter at WHSV in Virginia. So hoping that I can do that in Maryland too, which we did do a little bit up at the schools near Hagerstown though too.
Awesome stuff to hear, Alex. So big talk of the town, the NFL playoffs. With 1 week left to go, there are still some teams looking to post their bid into the playoffs this year. One of those teams obviously being the Washington football team, which you have covered for WDVM over the past couple of weeks. I'm not sure how it works. Do you all rotate on and off, or are you just there every week?
Yeah, there's four of us, me and Alif and Grace and Jake. So we kind of all split the coverage. I mean, Washington is the biggest, the football team's the biggest thing in this area. It has been for so many years. I mean, we're lucky in this market that there's so many amazing sports teams to cover. But the thing about the Washington football team is, throughout my whole life, and I'm sure too, when they're good, everybody cares. And that's what people want to hear about. So, the four of us kind of team up and do as much good coverage as we can of them.
So one of the big stories that has rocked DC over the past 2 weeks is the release of Dwayne Haskins. I know you probably covered it very heavily up there at WDVM. So when you heard about the news breaking and stuff, I'm sure you were a part of that press conference and stuff. What can you tell us about what you've heard about the release of Dwayne Haskins? And in your opinion, was it the right time for him to go, or should they have waited till after the season?
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, obviously this is not my own reporting, but what I heard through some sources that people reported on is they said that Ron Rivera wanted to release Dwayne Haskins the week before, but I think some within the organization wanted to give him another chance, and they were hoping to win that game. But I mean, as we clearly saw at the end of that game, Tyler Heineke might have given them a better chance to win that Carolina game than Dwayne Haskins would have. I don't think it was a bad time for them to do it. I mean, he'd made countless mistakes off the field. His play on the field was not impressive. There was rumblings that he didn't have a good work ethic. And I think when you combine all of those things, I think that's really what led them to release him. I was surprised they didn't wait till the end of the season, because I figured, if they weren't going to do it before that Carolina game, that it probably would have waited till the offseason. But I think just after that, Carolina game, the way he played, what he had done off the field, I mean, at the end of the day, in my opinion, the biggest thing is he went into a situation where he could have gotten coronavirus. You have a coach who had just survived cancer. You have a whole team who goes home to their families. And I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's human, but it's a tough decision to make and pile that on top of all these other issues he's had. But, I really do hope Dwayne Haskins gets it together, because, he's human and everybody deserves a second chance. And I think we will see him play again in this league. Where, I don't know. I think wherever Urban Meyer ends up getting a head coaching job, if that happens, I think that's where we could see him go. But I think Ron Rivera was just ready to cut ties there and move on. And we'll see if it's Taylor Heineke or Alex Smith this week. But either way, I know everybody's hoping to see them sneak into the playoffs there.
Yeah, that would be huge for Washington with a losing record in Philadelphia. So, have we heard any more? Do you know anything about who the starter could be? Did they say anything? Do you know anything more than just a random sports podcaster like me would know?
Well, I know today Alex was participating somewhat in practice. I know Heineke is there too. There's Steven Montez, but I know that if Alex Smith is injured, if he cannot play, Taylor Heineke will be the starter. If Alex is healthy and ready to go, Ron Rivera has said it many times, he is the starter. He's the starting quarterback of this team. He gives them the best chance to win. But, I do think if Alex Smith isn't 100%, they have to give a good look at Taylor Heineke. There's not a lot of a sample size, but he's a gunslinger and he may give them a chance to win. But best case scenario, they have both quarterbacks going into the game and they can see, how it goes and give Alex a chance to try to win it. But right now, everyone's kind of on the edge of their seat waiting to see who's going to go this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tell pretty much everybody I have the pleasure of interviewing on my podcast about Alex Smith. His journey was incredible. We've said it multiple times on this podcast. I want your thoughts, Alex, on the remarkable comeback of Alex Smith.
Well, I remember a couple years ago when he hurt his leg and, it didn't look good. And, when you see an injury like that in the NFL, especially on a guy who's, up there in years in the league, you think that could be it. And especially when you hear about what he was going through, where he almost had to lose his leg. I think it was like 17 surgeries, something like that. It's just amazing. And it reminds us, why we love sports. He fought, he worked hard, and he recovered, and to see him come back on the field and have Washington in a spot to maybe make the playoffs, for them to have that big win streak, with Alex Smith in there at quarterback, it's absolutely incredible. And I think of 2020, it's one of the stories of the year, and I think he's a shoe-in for comeback player of the year in the NFL. He should win it. And I think he's a story that's going to be talked about for many, many years, and going to always be remembered as one of the greatest comeback stories in the NFL, in this area, and in sports especially.
Absolutely. So shifting our focus now, I want to dive in a little bit about the University of Maryland and their conference. It was a shaky road for college football for University of Maryland and the rest of their division, starting late due to COVID and stuff. Starting off with football, obviously, but I mean, how did you see their season play out? And with COVID, do you think they managed it well with COVID? Because I know there were a lot of obstacles that they had to overcome in order to play this season.
Right. Well, I think they did the best they could. I know the Big Ten wasn't going to play, and then they were going to play, so everybody was scrambling. And some teams had players opting out, and opting to err on the side of caution and try to be as safe as they could. And some players played this year, and they got a number of games in, but a number of games got canceled because they had, I guess you could say, inevitable COVID outbreaks. Almost every college program you follow was having cancellations and things like that. So I think the most important thing is that everybody seems to have made it through the season okay. Everybody is healthy, from my understanding. I know some players had cases of COVID, but they made it through. And, I think they were all happy to get to play. The big thing was Taulia Tagovailoa, who I did a story on. It was his first season with the program. He won the starting quarterback job, as many know, Tua's younger brother, Tua with the Miami Dolphins, formerly with Alabama. And he's got an awesome story, and he led them to a number of wins. Jake Funk, the running back, local product from Damascus, he played pretty well too. That defense was impressive. One guy that really stepped up, Tarheeb Still, the true freshman. So, I think a lot of people look back to the years of Maryland football and they remember Ralph Friedgen, who led Maryland to a number of bowl games and a lot of success there. In the past 8 years, we haven't seen much success from this Maryland football program. And everybody really hopes that Mike Locksley can turn it around. He's an incredible recruiter. He has so many ties in this area and beyond. And I hope to see they'll turn around. I do think without COVID, maybe we'd be seeing faster progress from this program. But I do think we'll see Mike Locksley leading this program to a bowl win before it's said and done. I don't, know how much further they'll get than that. I'd like to see them establish themselves as a big power in the Big Ten, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, this year, they had some electrifying wins over Minnesota at home, and they went on the road and beat Penn State. So, there were some good moments, and there were definitely some bad moments for Maryland, but, it was impressive that they were able to get together as much as they could this year.
So let's talk about Tagovailoa. Is there really, I don't really want to say comparison, but do you see hints of Tua with his brother's gameplay at the University of Maryland? Do we think we could see another Tagovailoa make it to the NFL?
Well, I think Taulia definitely has potential to make it to the NFL. The funny backstory to that is, Tua was the guy. He was the quarterback growing up in Taulia. When they played together when they were younger, he was the center, and he snapped the ball to Tua, which is something a lot of people don't know. When Tua got older, Taulia became the quarterback, worked out well for him. He went to Alabama. And then when Tua went to the NFL, Taulia transferred to Maryland. And he's played really well here this season. He's showed flashes of greatness. He's a little different than Tua. Obviously he's not, I don't think I mixed it up. One's a lefty, the other one's not. But anyway, I think we could see Taulia in the NFL one day. I don't know for sure, but I definitely think he has the potential. And I think you'll see more good years from him at Maryland, and then we'll see where he goes after that. But I honestly, I think he will make it.
Absolutely. It would be great to see. I actually watched some of his high school gameplay, and he looked amazing out there. That's to his younger brother, by the way. So University of Maryland basketball, you were covering their game yesterday, if
Yep.
I'm correct.
Yep. For New Year's
How
Eve.
that on New Year's Eve. Tell us about that. How their basketball program has been doing recently.
Yeah, well, with Anthony Cowan graduating and Jalen Smith going on to the NBA, this is a season where everybody knew the Terps were missing some of those key pieces. But they have shown this year that while they may not be as good as they were last year or the years before, they're going to fight in every game. They just beat Wisconsin the other day. Wisconsin, number 6 in the country. Michigan came in. They're ranked lower than Wisconsin, I believe, 15th or 16th, but they're undefeated. And they came in last night, and Maryland was shooting lights out from 3, kept it close. They were up by 4 in the second half, and then Michigan kind of just took over that game. I think it's Hunter Dickinson is his name, is a freshman center on Michigan, went to DeMatha, was actually not happy that Maryland didn't give him as much recruiting attention coming out. So that was kind of a revenge game for him there. He kind of carried Michigan to the win as their leading scorer. But, this Maryland team, they've got some key pieces. Dante Scott, sophomore forward, has looked incredible. Hakeem Hart, another sophomore, 2 of them from Philly. They both looked really good. Eric Ayala, Aaron Wiggins, they've stepped up as leaders. Daryl Morcell was injured last night, but he has looked good. So I think this is a team that is fighting and that is working hard. And, they're not the best team we've seen at Maryland, but they're a gritty team. And, Mark Turgeon is always going to have his guys ready to fight.
So COVID-19 protocols, not just with Maryland, but everywhere in NCAA basketball. What has been different from this season having to deal with COVID on the basketball side of things? We've seen it for football, but what has changed during basketball?
Do you mean for the teams or for the media specifically?
It was just general, like for the teams, and basically, I mean, media is a big part of it too. I assume you're just not down there on the press table the whole night, stuff like that.
Well, for us, it's different because we can't sit on the court anymore. I used to sit on the baseline filming the games. Now I have to film from the stands. Instead of a press conference in the press conference room with Mark Turgeon, we sit each at our own computers on a Zoom, So for us, it's different. We have to make adjustments. Media is limited. We have to be there at a specific time. It's all different because they're trying to keep the players and everybody safe. But for the team, it's totally changing how they have to live their daily lives during the basketball season. In the past, you have your practices, you have your media, you do whatever. These kids are you got to remember, these aren't just, basketball players. These are student athletes. They're in college, so they're losing that college experience that would be normal for them, that they would be able to have fun, make friends, and do all kinds of things. Really, the situation for this Maryland basketball team, for all the programs in the nation, they're in their own bubble, so they can only really hang out with their teammates and their coaches, and they have practices, and practices are less and different than they've been in the past because, there's the women's team and the men's team, and they can be there a specific time. So it's a lot of adjustments, and it's a harder year. The thing is, everybody's dealing with it, so it's not like one team has an advantage over another. But they also have to be ready for scheduling changes. Maryland had a week where I think they had like 4 games canceled in the span of a week, and their director of operations had to scramble to schedule a replacement opponent after replacement opponent. So it's been a season of, an unprecedented season, and you never know what's happening next. So it's been really different and a lot to adjust to for college basketball programs throughout the country.
So, sticking with more of the reporter standpoint, has it changed for you a lot interviewing people on Zoom rather than in person? Well, what are some of the differences? Is it easier or harder for you? Just explain some of that for us.
Well, it's easier in the sense where if we want to do 10 stories in a day, we can schedule 10 Zooms. We don't have to drive all over the place, and we can probably get more content and more different things on our show. What's harder is, when you're in person, you talk to someone in person, you develop that connection. you get to know each other. It's easier to have a conversation face to face in person. And that's something I really miss. I've gotten to do it a little bit. I have a setup where I have a stick that's 6 feet and I can interview someone,
Oh, yeah.
from a distance, and I put the stick attached to a chair and then I'm far away. But I used to put a microphone on people, and I'm not doing that now, just out of precaution. So it's different. It's harder to develop sources and relationships with sources. But it's in a sense changed things. And I think it's something that once COVID passes, people are still going to use Zoom for interviews. If you want to get an interview done that's 3 hours, 2 hours away, and you can't go out there that easily, you'll probably do it over Zoom. It's going to help, to interview people for feature stories and things like that for TV. Because, writers have always been able to just pick up a phone or Skype or call someone or whatever. And TV, we always want to get them in person on camera.
Yeah.
So I think Zoom is going to be a tool that we'll utilize, but I think once things pass, everybody's going to be excited to be back in person again. At least us extroverts will be.
I mean, I kid you not. I just switched to Zoom, and it's the best thing ever.
Oh yeah, it's a great tool, and for recording, it's great. I've loved it. Teams are using it for press conferences, but I do miss that in-person aspect.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Like Scott Abraham of ABC7 said. When I had him on, he was like, I wish I could interview a real person.
Right.
Not
exactly.
over Zoom.
We miss it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's unprecedented times indeed. Once again, this is Alex Flum of WDVM TV. Alex, we look forward to hearing more of your great news stories and great content on the airwaves over the course of 2021. We really appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you, Josh. And I'm honored to be, I think, the first one of the year, right?
First one of the year. Yes,
first
sir.
One.
We
I'm
will
honored.
get you. Yep. First one of the year.
Starting off on the right foot.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Once again, Alex Flum of WDVM TV, based out of Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm Josh Kirby. You're listening to the Kirby on Sports podcast. We'll be right back. I'd like to take a moment to talk about my friends over at Regroup Building Services, specializing in custom homes, remodels, additions, and so much more. If you're looking for a new place to call home or just need repairs on your current one, look no further, because Regroup Building Services has you covered. Just a couple months ago, Regroup Building Services came in and redid our entire kitchen, and boy, does it look great. I cannot recommend them enough. So if you're looking for anything to be done, make sure you check them out at www.regroupbuildingservices.com. Once again, that's www.regroupbuildingservices.com, where they do the honeydews that your honey don't. Make sure you tell them Josh sent you. PM Plus, providing capital reserve studies for condominium and homeowners associations in Northern Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. for the past 30 years. Now serving the I-81 corridor from Hagerstown, Maryland to Stanton, Virginia. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram, or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Once again, that's www.shenandoahprimitives.com. All right. Continuing week 17, once again, big thanks to Alex Flum of WDVM for coming on the podcast
Thank
today.
you, Alex.
Let's move on. A whole list of interesting, exciting games in week 17. I want to start with Cleveland versus Pittsburgh.
Yes, we do.
Man.
So
Cleveland almost the same old Browns almost browned it again.
Yeah,
man, I would've
almost
loved
browned it, but they got into the playoffs with a win and in. But
There's a lot of those this week.
I mean, obviously they sat Roethlisberger. They started Mason Rudolph. So I was like, oh, could Myles Garrett come swinging at the helmet again? I mean,
everybody said that. Yeah,
he didn't.
Everybody, that was the biggest talking point. They're just like, oh.
I mean, but what's interesting is Cleveland is playing Pittsburgh this upcoming week in the playoffs, and
yeah, it's going to be a different game.
It will be because
very different.
Kevin Stefanski tests positive for COVID, so he's not coaching in this game.
Yeah, and there's a couple players. I don't know if they've named them. I don't think they're.
I did not see anybody named, but still.
Yeah,
well,
I saw.
I mean, the good news is that there was no more today. No positive tests came out.
Yeah. Obviously, that's a good thing, but still, without their head coach, I mean, how does a team like Cleveland, with their first playoff appearance and who knows how long, how does a coaching staff handle that? I mean, game plan and preparation is one thing, but I mean, you don't have the head coach who's been out there for all 17 games this season calling their plays, you know?
Yeah, I think, they have, OC and DC, and obviously they'll get together and, like you said, put the game plan together. It's a matter of who's going to step in and fill that role on game day, because that's a different situation. The coach makes a lot of on the fly decisions. Clock management is a big deal, and that can make a big difference in this game. Challenges. There's a lot of strategic things that head coaches are used to handling, and how is that going to be handled this time? I think that's a good question. So, I think, as far as a game plan and as far as calling the plays are concerned, I don't think they're going to have any issue. But when it comes down to strategy and how to play that side of it, I do think it's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the offensive coordinator who's going to be play calling, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, Kevin Stefanski kind of downplayed his what he does on the field. He's like, listen, all I do is just look on a sheet, just go down the sheet and just call out what the sheet says. That's all he said. But like you said, Dan, the head coach, he makes a lot of calls on the fly. And to me, it's like, if you don't have a lot of experience in being in that situation and, actually calling the plays and being seeing seeing personnel, having that feel for it,
right?
Then it gets hard. For example, we saw it in the we didn't touch on this during our college football segment, but with Clemson, they didn't have their offensive coordinator with them who normally calls the plays.
Yep.
And you would think that as an offensive, but this is a different situation. It's your head coach, not your offensive coordinator. But again, the offensive coordinator, he doesn't call the plays. He just contributes in making them, I guess. But this is just a typical Brown situation, don't you think? This would happen to the Cleveland Browns. You finally make it into the playoffs, and then your head coach catches COVID, and he can't coach the game, and now, and you're playing against one of your biggest rivals in Pittsburgh. Now, but this game is going to be at Pittsburgh. You're going to face their, you face their JV team. You barely won that game.
Yeah.
Now you're going to face their varsity team. Probably going to get completely blown out of the water.
I agree.
It's just incredible. The bad luck that becomes on this franchise is just incredible to me.
Yeah. And by the way, interim head coach for this game is a guy named Mike Prefer. I don't know who that is, but he's a special teams coach. So you got a special teams coach.
So it's not
a special teams coach.
Yep. And then offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt is expected to call the plays. Well, isn't that his job? Like, what's his job? If he's,
Yeah.
I guess, draw up the plays, I guess. But like, what does he do on game days? He just sit there and drink coffee or something?
Is he
Come
one of
on.
those guys that sits in like the booth up top? I hate coaches that
He's
do that.
he's got the little feet warmers.
I
I
guess.
hate, to me, okay, like we're going a little bit off topic here, but to me, if you're a coach, wouldn't you want to be on the actual field?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never understood that, in my opinion.
I guess it's because like up there you get like a better view, and you can see like the actual personnel that comes in and out of the game. But like to
I
me,
think
like I would
it's-
rather be on the field with my guys.
Yeah, yeah, I could
I
agree
think
with that, but
it serves more of a purpose as like a defensive coordinator to be up there because you can see the whole field, and like it's really important on defense to see the whole field and see what the offense is coming at you with. So I see it from that perspective. I think on offense, it's certainly nice to be down the sidelines. Plus, interacting with your quarterback, your offensive personnel. There's more interaction there, I think, than there are with defensive personnel. So I think that's why defensive coaches can get away with it more. Man, that was a tangent I did not expect to go on. Wow.
No,
Um,
we went on it. We took the journey, and now we're here.
I'm just
so-
surprised that their special teams coach is their interim head coach. That's really bizarre. You don't see that very often.
who is it? Joe Judge. He was a special teams coordinator before he became a head coach.
Yeah, so was John Harbaugh. So I mean, it does happen. It does happen. But
all right, let's move on. So Cleveland winning in, they checked that mark off, and they're going to the playoffs. Another game I want to.
Congrats to Cleveland for finally
Yep.
making the playoffs. Congrats to them. Congrats to the AFC North for getting 3 teams in.
3. That's really
Three.
good.
I mean,
It was
I
a little
mean-
dicey for a minute there, but they got them in.
the Browns fans can now take the paper bags off of their heads.
Well, I mean, they could have done that, Hey,
All right.
After
never
they
mind,
after
hold
they
on.
fired after they fired Hugh Jackson, I think they had a right
Not
to
even
do
huge.
that.
After they fired, what's their last coach? What's his name?
Yeah, the
man,
fat guy.
Yeah, he works for New
Kitchens,
York
Freddie
now.
Kitchens.
Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, Freddie.
God,
Freddie
he was horrible.
Kitchens, who's coaching with the New York Giants now. So, all right,
Oh.
let's
That guy
let's
had
move on,
no
guys.
business being a head
We're,
coach.
we're
So
moving
bad.
on. I want to briefly touch on this next game: Miami versus Buffalo. Miami with a win-in scenario, and
Winning in.
without backup quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick due to COVID. Tua was riding out the entire game, and I think we've seen why. I mean, this is really tough because the Dolphins and their quarterback switching have annoyed me, but I think I'm understanding why Brian Flores was switching to Fitzpatrick to try to win the game. Tua just went out there and threw 3 interceptions, only 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions, and they came out flat, and Buffalo just annihilated them 56-26. And
Yeah,
It's-
Buffalo was hot.
it
Buffalo was
sucks
hot.
to see Miami just come out flat and not get the opportunity to play in the playoffs after all they have accomplished throughout this season. But a lot to look out for next year for this Dolphins team.
Yeah, it's insane. Oh, sorry, Carlos. Did you want to go
No,
first?
you're good. You're good.
It's just insane that Tua threw it 58 times. That's just, of course, you're going to make mistakes when you have a young quarterback throwing that many times. So that's, I'll start with that. I'll also say they couldn't run the ball very well. Their leading rusher at 29 yards. So, yeah, Buffalo's hot right now, and they've caught fire at the right time, and they are the most dangerous team, I think, in the AFC. I do think they can beat Kansas City, and of course, as a Ravens fan, it also is painful to say that,
Terrifying.
for me to say that. And I definitely don't want to play either of those teams. But if you're going to win, you're going to have to find a way to play both of them. So, yeah, it sucks the Dolphins missed the playoffs, but I do think they have a bright future, and that division is certainly going to be interesting. Minus the Jets, it's going to be interesting next season with these two teams, and how will the Patriots rebound? I think that's the big question going into next year. And I think, as a wise person once said, Bill Belichick's the man to sort of get it in motion. So, but I do think the Dolphins' future is bright. I think Tua just needs help. That's the bottom line. It was all him. It was all him in this game. They put all the pressure on him, and that's just too much pressure for a young quarterback. So,
Yeah.
and the Bills are just on fire. I mean, what else can you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
The Bills have heated up at just the right time, and there will be fans for the Bills playoff game. So that's huge.
Many tables will be broken.
Oh my,
probably. But yeah, the Bills they did Miami no favors. I mean, they started all their starters in the first half, and they kind of went off in the second quarter, scored 4 touchdowns. It was 20-6 at halftime. I mean, how do you go? Let me ask you guys this: how do you guys feel about this whole kind of? I don't know if it's a large movement, but this whole movement with Miami has the 3rd pick in the draft because of the Laramie Tunsil trade with Houston. So they have Houston's pick, so they're picking 3rd. How do you guys feel about certain people saying that maybe Miami should look at another quarterback over Tua?
Nah, I don't agree. I don't think they've given him enough consistent playing time. He's got 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, and that's
halfway
not
through the year.
Right. He came in and sort of was kind of pushed into that, and then of course I think the flip flop kind of messes with the quarterback's psyche too. Maybe it didn't for Fitzpatrick because he was so used to doing that throughout his career. His
unfortunately,
his 30-year NFL career that he's in now. So
with his 28th team,
he's played on every team in the NFL. So I do think that's messed with Tua a little bit though. So I just think it's too soon to throw in the Tua towel.
Yeah, good one.
I liked it.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. I feel like Miami might have messed up with this by even playing him this season. Don't forget, Tua's coming off of a pretty traumatic injury.
That's true.
Whenever people say he's not as mobile as he was, well, don't forget, he broke his hip pretty bad, and from not from my own personal experience, but my little sister broke her hip a couple years ago. And I know how long and how hard it was for her to kind of even get back to where she was. And it's she's had to it takes time to strengthen that, part of your body back up too. Cause not only, you gotta, the muscles are also getting hurt around your hip. So for me, I feel like they should have I don't understand why teams are so quick to put these young guys in and why they don't see what happened with Patrick Mahomes. Again, I like to go back to Patrick Mahomes because we see how successful that was. You sit him behind Ryan Fitzpatrick for this whole season. Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing good up until the point when they benched him.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was still playing good even afterwards. And you just have Tua learn off him. Tua was on Ryan Fitzpatrick's hip. Jesus, that was hard to say. He was on his hip. So it wasn't like a Dwayne Haskins situation where Dwayne Haskins wasn't even he was on the other side of the bench with whatever starting quarterback there was. Tua was actually trying to learn, and he was, and he's learning from, maybe not one of the best ever, but, a guy who's been in the league for a long time and has had, some success. To me, I feel like what you guys need to do because they're picking 3rd, and then they have, I think, the 19th pick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
They just need to get more help. I mean, you get 2 first-round picks, get more help to succeed, because he's gonna get healthier. He's got that year under his belt, and a lot of these young quarterbacks make a big strides in their second year, i.e. Josh Allen. Remember Josh Allen's rookie year? He looked like crap, and now look, he's playing at an MVP level. So,
here's the sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would just say that, not to defend the Dolphins' decision to play Tua, but you brought up a good point. He is coming off a traumatic injury. There was a lot of unknown going into draft day. Does Tua still have it? We kept hearing that. We kept seeing his workouts. We kept seeing him throwing the ball all around. But it's easier said than done. And I think that's part of the reason why the Dolphins made the decision to even play Tua. They wanted to see what they had in Tua. They wanted to see how he was developed, how he would make a transition from Alabama to the NFL. And I also think, they realize how old Ryan Fitzpatrick is. They realize he's played on 25 different teams in the NFL. They know that really his career is not going to go on most likely for much longer. Now,
Yep.
every time he plays, he proves people wrong because he continues to play well. But I just don't know if I kind of have a feeling that was their big thought going into this. Well, we know Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably at the end of his career. He most likely is. Let's see what we have with Tua. Let's see if he can, play in some live games. And I think when they put him out there and he didn't play great, but he didn't play poorly either. He was middle of the road when he first started playing this season, about halfway through the year. But he was helping them win games, and I think that was a big reason why they said, well, it seems to be working out. Let's keep him out there. But I like I said, I just don't like the flip flop. When Tua has a bad drive, they put in Fitzpatrick, and when Fitzpatrick throws a pick, they put Tua back in. It's just an odd situation, and I think next year the big decision is going to be, okay, do we let Ryan Fitzpatrick go? I'm not sure how much is left on his contract. I'd have to go check that, but
yeah,
I feel like he's got to be near the end of his contract, though.
Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't let Ryan Fitzpatrick go. I feel like he's a good mentor to Tua. But to flip it back to on Buffalo side, man, like they are going into these playoffs hot. They are the one team that I do not want to face.
No.
Like if I'm Kansas City, I'm hoping to God that I don't see them in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on what you said, Carlos, about the Patrick Mahomes story, how he sat behind none other than Alex Smith. But I mean, I feel like in this league, a drafted quarterback is more successful when you're getting mentored and not seeing any playing time. And that's a perfect example with Patrick Mahomes. And I would love to see that happen more often. But I mean, some teams are just in situations where they have to draft a quarterback and they start week one and you don't see that much success.
Yeah, well, again, the thing again with Patrick Mahomes is they already had Alex Smith in place.
Yeah.
So like they were and they knew and we all knew that Patrick Mahomes had tremendous potential, a tremendous upside if you could develop him right. But the other thing that worked in Patrick Mahomes' favor is the coaching staff that was at Kansas City. You got one of the best in Andy Reid. I always say this. A lot of people keep saying what would happen if Patrick Mahomes went to Chicago. I don't know if he's the same player.
Nope,
because
no way.
Obviously we've seen how incompetent they are with Mitchell Trubisky. My thing is, I know Brian Flores to me has proven himself to be a very good coach, and I know that under him, Tua is going to. I do believe Tua will thrive. I do feel like this was. If there was any quarterback that could have used that 1 year sitting back, it was probably going to be Tua because he was, again, coming off of that injury. Just give him time to heal. Let him learn how to be a pro. That's it, and just let him learn from a guy who's, a class act who everybody does love in the NFL.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be a Justin Herbert who comes in and just lights it up. Not everybody's going to be a Joe Burrow before he got injured. Or an Andrew Luck who immediately his rookie year flipped the Colts around. That's just not the case all the time. A lot of times, these rookie quarterbacks struggle, because, the speed of the, just Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes' situation was what was the perfect storm for Patrick Mahomes.
But But he's a once in a lifetime type of player too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do think you make a good point, but I think in a lot of ways, I mean, when Patrick Mahomes got to the Chiefs, I think what makes that situation different, they were already a pretty competitive team. So I think that makes a difference. You don't feel as pressured to throw a rookie quarterback out there because you're saying, hey, we have a veteran guy who's playing well. We're winning football games. We're competitive enough to make the playoffs. So, they let him learn behind Alex Smith. So I think that's the big difference there. The Dolphins week to week, first of all, they were fighting in a really, really good division with Buffalo. And, sometimes New England, most of the time not, but but so they were really fighting for the playoffs, and when something doesn't work with your 80-year-old quarterback Fitzpatrick, you got to go with the young guns. So, but I do think that the flip flop is not good though for a young quarterback's development in the NFL. It just says to them, well, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. They'd almost feel better sitting on the bench, I feel like, a lot of times, than they would being taken out of a game when you've played 2 drives and you make one mistake.
Yeah, a wise coach once said that if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got none.
That's right.
All right. So that's the Miami versus Buffalo. Miami, unfortunately, does not clinch a playoff berth because they did not win. Let's talk about these next 2, sort of combine them together. The Los Angeles Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. John Wolford for the Los Angeles Rams. I can't believe golf.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
He has an active LinkedIn.
Really?
Yeah, he has an active LinkedIn account.
He does?
I'm going to connect.
They told a story about it on like all the pregame shows.
Here he is.
An active LinkedIn.
He has an active LinkedIn account.
Wow. So, okay. And besides that, he comes in place of the injured Jared Goff, and they win the game 18-7. Kyler Murray was 8 for 11, 87 yards. Then he gets injured. So Arizona's back up. Chris Streveler comes in, 11 for 16, 105 with a touchdown and an interception. But the Cardinals just did not look well at all during this game. They only put up 7 points, and the Rams were able to win, and they get into the playoffs. And with Arizona's loss, the Bears get into the playoffs, and with the Packers win over the Bears, they clinch the first seed in the NFC. So sort of tying those 2 games together, the Bears playing the Packers. As we know, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers looked incredible as always, but this Arizona versus Los Angeles game, in my opinion, the Cardinals just did not look good at all, and the Rams were able to win. But all in all, it was a really sloppy game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I didn't really watch too much of this game because it wasn't that. I mean, look at the scoreline, 18-7. It just wasn't entertaining. Like Kyler Murray, man, what an up and down season this was for him. Like think about it. In the beginning of the season, there was talks of like he's a dark horse MVP. They made the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. They do the Hail Murray play, and they beat Buffalo on that. And just like, you have this weapon again with DeAndre Hopkins, and man, what a dud.
Yeah, I got nothing to say about this game.
There's not much to say. And then he gets injured.
Just really bad.
Yeah, Kyler gets injured, gets out. Then they bring in some quarterback from the CFL who
Streveler or Streveler.
Yes, Streveler or whatever. He won the Grey Cup and the Canadian Football League, and apparently he's a hit up there, and a lot of shirtless things that I saw. Like he's the J.R. Smith of Canadian football, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a lot. Just not a lot to say. This game was not entertaining. Congrats to the Rams for making it. Whether they're going to get Jared Goff back for this upcoming playoff game against Seattle is that good question. I don't know if who knows how his thumb's doing. But I mean, we touched on the Packers. I mean, obviously with the loss, the Bears got in, and we touched on that game.
I mean, there's not much to say about the Packers and how well they played.
The Packers. The Packers clinching the number 1 seed and home field is going to be massive.
Yep.
For them. I
never want to play at Lambeau in January. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see really any team going up in Lambeau and beating this team. I don't. Aaron Rodgers is playing so good right now. Like again,
Patrick Mahomes was my MVP like a couple weeks ago.
I think Rodgers is mine.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Rodgers,
I think Rodgers has overtaken that.
Rodgers has taken it. Like it
Yep.
was Patrick Mahomes. Then Patrick Mahomes had that iffy game against Atlanta, and then he didn't play week 17. And Aaron lit it up those 2 weeks. And I'm just like, how can you not give it to this guy? This guy's playing so great right now.
48 touchdown passes this season. I mean, that speaks for itself.
That's
It's just
more
insane.
times than the Green Bay punter has came on to attempt to punt.
Yeah, exactly. Just insane.
Now I got here's the question that I guess we should ask. So the Bears made the playoffs, right?
Yep.
What are we doing with Mitch Trubisky? Do you think, and Matt Nagy, do you think they're going to get extensions? What do you think they do?
They've already said they're not extending Mitch Trubisky past the fifth year.
Well, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, but they can still re-sign him.
Yeah. Man,
that's
I have
a
no
tough
idea.
question.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. So obviously the talk going into this game was, oh, Mitch Trubisky's changed. Again, that whole nonsense that they talked about the first time they played, right? Earlier this season when after they benched Trubisky and then they brought him back, right? And then they were trying to hype him up. They're like, oh, he's got an edge to him, all this crap. Listen, we know who Trubisky is at this point. He's not good. The past couple weeks that they won and that Trubisky was lighting it up, it was against bad defenses.
Yep.
It wasn't against
Absolutely.
good defenses. Now they come up against a decent defense in the Packers defense. They're playing lights out right now. And you see what happens. Like, he's just not good. And then you see a guy, and then you compare him to Aaron Rodgers, and you got this 38-year-old stud just destroying them, picking them apart.
Yeah, he looks like a kid out there, man. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, it looks like this Aaron Rodgers is in, and obviously, I don't know if you guys watch it every Tuesday. He's on Pat McAfee's show. I watch it every Tuesday. And you can just tell he's just having a lot more fun this season than it looked like he was last season.
Can I just say something about the Pat McAfee show just to go off on the side?
Oh, it's great.
They were
I love that
interviewing
show.
Ian
I love
Rappaport.
them, dude.
Then he had to go because he had to break the Dwayne Haskins news.
Yeah, I watched that live. I was like, oh shit, what's going on? And then they predicted it. They predicted it on the Pat McAfee show. They were like, is Dwayne Haskins getting released? I love that show so much.
It's fun.
It is really funny.
Again, it feels like you're just sitting there. We can praise that show all the live long day.
Like you're just chatting with friends about sports. That's really what it's all about.
Like you're in the room with them.
And I love Pat McAfee's stories of the NFL because I think his style of like telling stories with comedy about football is not you don't hear that very much. So
yeah, he's a great
so
storyteller.
refreshing.
Yeah.
We're going way off topic here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the week 17 show. Anything can happen here. So one of the games I really wanted to touch in depth on is Baltimore versus Cincinnati.
Why do we want to
Did you really?
on that?
It was a joke.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was about to be like, Kirby, what the?
You believed
what the hell is
me.
wrong
You
with
believed me.
I mean, I'm very happy about that spanking we gave them, but it should have happened.
Did you fall asleep? Did you fall asleep halfway through, Dan?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was about to say I've heard
I
Dan
did.
give some pretty in-depth reviews on.
I've got nothing to say about this game.
I was kidding. It was just a joke, just to lighten the mood. I was like,
anybody actually watch the game?
I will say,
I'm pretty sure you did, Dan, but
I did turn it off in like the late third quarter when they scored that the last touchdown ended up being for the game. So
it sucks they didn't put RG3 in though.
RG triple sticks.
He's not healthy, I don't think.
Yeah, he's on IR.
Imagine that he's on IR. Huh. Who would think? I can't believe he's in the NFL.
Dan, he didn't deserve that. RG triple sticks didn't deserve that.
He didn't.
He didn't deserve that.
I don't believe he did either. I mean, it sucks. I think he's trying to make a name for himself again, and that just really didn't help him.
Well, yeah, I respect what the guy's done. He's tried to make an NFL career after all the stuff that transpired in Washington with how terrible Mike Shanahan handled that situation.
Man, talk about wasting talent, man.
Yeah. They really
'Cause
did.
He lit it up that rookie year, and I
Oh,
was
he was
so
insane.
scared. I was so scared. I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to deal with the the other team name, but I'm gonna have to deal with Washington running this division for the next god foreseeable future." And then they just botched it, man. Like, and they gave up so much for him too.
They really did.
Like they
Okay,
traded.
so-
Yeah, go on.
So let's talk about the more exciting game that I'm actually not joking about. Tennessee versus Houston.
Oh my god, dude.
I
What a
mean, this
game.
was a game where Tennessee did not have to win because they were in either way.
No.
No, they still had to win.
They still had to win because if they lost, okay. This was a scenario going into that game.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, with Miami losing, it put Indianapolis in, right? So Indianapolis had this weird thing where they could go from out wild card division winners, and Tennessee was the same way. They could be out, they could be wild card or division winners.
Yeah.
So going into this game, that's what it was, and obviously Indianapolis beat Jacksonville. They look good in that game, and then Tennessee is like struggling against Houston. My mind is like blown up at this point because I already have some edits already made, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to switch things around now. I was like, oh no, but Tennessee, man, they doinked it in.
Yeah, what a way to win, right?
But I think it was towards the end of the game where the scenario popped up that it was either they get the 7th if they lose or clinch the division. And Tennessee fought hard. That was a game that came down to the very last play. And a rookie kicker, too.
I was angry about that finish, though. God. First of all, they give up a 60-yard, Houston's defense gives up a 60-yard pass. And already puts them at field goal range to take the 3-point lead.
Oh yeah.
I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. This is shades of what game was it? Shoot. It's listen.
Well, I think just to add that Houston was trying to fight hard this last game to win after JJ Watt's emotional press conference. I feel like that sort of fueled the fire for Houston to come out, even though they had nothing to play for, just to try to get that last win under the.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is Deshaun Watson's all by himself. He's got no help, and
I felt so bad. So bad.
He just looks so distraught, and
he just signed that massive deal, man. He shouldn't have signed that deal knowing that they were going to trade away his best weapon in DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
I agree.
Billy
goes back to
Hopkins. Bill O'Brien just did this dirty. Like this guy literally had, and you saw JJ Watt even apologize to Deshaun Watson. They wasted a year of this kid's career, and Deshaun Watson is. I said it like I've been saying it since he was in college. This kid is special. Like this is a kid who's gonna light up the league for years, but you got to put something around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
no doubt.
It's a complete crap show of an organization that mostly single-handedly was ruined by one guy. So
yeah,
I mean, people forget that they were competing and they were in the playoffs the last few years.
They were beating Kansas City. What was it, like 28-0?
Yeah. It was 24.
Yeah,
and then Kansas City and then they haven't looked back since then. So just crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, but Houston clinches the division with that incredible game. It was incredible.
Tennessee, not Houston.
No. Hold on.
Tennessee.
Hold on. No. Kirby was correct. He was talking about the Houston Oilers. Who became the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, there you go.
Kirby with the advanced thinking here. I'm with you.
Thank you for correcting a mistake. I thank you for correcting that.
Are we not going to touch on Derrick Henry? 34 carries, 250 yards.
Yeah,
that's normal for him.
That man's a tank. Derrick Henry knows how to carry the football and get yards.
He knows how to carry people down the field.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. He makes me scared on Sunday.
Dude, oh man, but
all right,
again.
So that's about that about wraps up the final week of the regular season. And to my closing remarks before we move on to the playoffs.
Hold on. Before we move on, we do have to touch on this one thing. How did you guys feel about that roughing the passer call in the Vikings-Lions game?
I did not watch it because there were no playoff implications.
It was all over social media.
Give me 1 sec. I can tell you my opinion on it. Hold on.
Oh, you didn't watch it?
I
real
did not
fast.
see it. I know the Vikings and the Lions played a close game. Kirk Cousins, 28 for 40 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Hopefully Matthew Stafford's last game as a Lion, and he can finally get out of that godforsaken city.
And we also heard that Cam Newton and the Patriots will be parting ways. So once again, Cam Newton will be a free agent. Not surprising. New England just wasn't that well, and I think Cam wasn't the answer. But sure enough, Bill Belichick, I think he has a solution up his sleeve somewhere. Who knows if it will get them to a championship, because I know myself and Dan were talking about Bill Belichick and the Patriots and how Bill Belichick could be out of his prime and he might not win a Super Bowl again, but still
It could be, but
the
I
dynasty
know what the
that the
solution is.
Patriots created with Bill Belichick, who knows, he could do it again. Then you have Adam Gase. Thank God he's gone. Thank God. Doug Marrone, he's gone. And Anthony Lynn for the Chargers, he's gone. So already a bunch of head coach firings, a bunch of vacancies looking to get filled for next season.
I thought the Anthony Lynn firing was a little premature.
Yeah, I really think so, because I think Anthony Lynn was he had to deal with Tyrod Taylor, obviously.
Oh, that was a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, that was huge. And then Justin Herbert, he looks pretty good, and then putting him as the starter. And then, all these close games that the Chargers are in and lose, I don't think that's all a coaching thing, in my opinion. That's just me. Some people might disagree and say Anthony Lynn should go, but I feel like you should have given Anthony Lynn at least one more season to prove himself.
Well, I think the problem with Anthony Lynn was he was really bad at time management during games. He really struggled with that, and it costed them a few games.
True.
But I do believe that could have been something that he could have worked on more. I don't think that it was a good idea to fire him. And now they're talking like Jason Garrett, Urban Meyer's now.
Oh God, I hate Urban Meyer.
Did we already discuss this?
No.
Discuss this.
No, we have not talked about Urban Meyer.
No, not Urban to LA, but didn't we talk Urban to Jacksonville?
Yeah, there's
we mentioned that.
There's I heard a rumor he wants $12 million a year.
That's not a lot.
But still,
he probably got paid that much in college.
I'm not really sure if that's going to happen. We've seen Nick Saban and how he did in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like we had this conversation on New Year's.
Yeah. Nick Saban, Lou Holtz. There's a ton of Steve Spurrier for the Washington football team.
Yeah, so a lot of unknowns with that, obviously. But if the Jaguars push hard for Urban Meyer, make sure you're right, because college coaches in the past have not translated well into the NFL.
And plus, he's been out of coaching for 2 years now.
2 or 3 years.
He's been in a Fox Sports booth covering college football.
And he's not that good at that, to be honest. I've heard him talk, and I'm like, he's not adding
the only reason Ohio
hates Urban Meyer.
The only reason Fox Sports goes to Ohio State is because of Urban Meyer.
No, it's because Ohio State's the best team in the conference, and they bring a lot of eyeballs.
They go to.
Well, they bring a lot of eyeballs. People are going to watch that. People aren't going to watch Northwestern and Purdue,
Ugh.
Except maybe this past year when Northwestern was good. So
yeah, maybe. I know,
but not as much.
Games.
Okay,
the Northwestern game I watched was because they were playing Ohio State, but
exactly.
I didn't even watch it that much.
Okay, so let's move on. My closing remarks before we close the chapter on the regular season coverage on the Kirby on Sports podcast in opening up the playoffs chapter. 17 weeks, 256 games. This year has been more than unprecedented, and the NFL found a way to get it done. Yes, the NFL played a game on every single day of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that, I mean, due to COVID and everything, that was the adjustment that needed to happen in order for the NFL to complete 256 games in 17 weeks. I have to tip my cap to everybody in the NFL for giving us a sense of normalcy and having the NFL played on schedule with no extension of a week 18. Hats off to the NFL. I cannot believe it. And with with this vaccine rolling out, I mean, who knows? I've heard that vaccinated healthcare workers might be going to the Super Bowl, and we could see limited attendance for some playoff teams. Not Washington already announced they wouldn't, but still other playoff teams, they might announce limited attendance. But this has been a sense of normalcy for us. And hats off to the NFL, how they planned, how they executed teams who had COVID outbreaks and stuff. Your Ravens being one of them, Dan. And it ended up, we completed 256 games in 17 weeks.
What'd you say? Sorry. I zoned out. I zoned out there at the end. Did you ask me a question?
No, I just said your Ravens were one of the teams who had a COVID outbreak that moved the game to Wednesday.
He only took a couple shots at your team. It's fine.
Yeah, but still, hats off to the National Football League, and I'm looking forward to the playoffs.
I can't believe you, Kirby. You're doing a positive little monologue there, and then you just have to throw a little negativity by calling out the Ravens.
Don't put that juju on me.
I was just saying the Ravens were one of the teams that had to deal with this outbreak.
Big time. I think they were the worst
due to an irresponsible coach.
Yeah,
but, yet again, it was
they still never fired
outbreak.
Him. So they should have fired him, and they didn't. So
beyond the point, we got it done. 17 weeks, 256 games.
We made it, fellas.
We made it to the playoffs. I mean, as always, thank you for the support, the Kirby on Sports podcast. And we're going to keep it going through the playoffs. So let's dive in to the playoff picture. The Chiefs and the Packers, first round buys, obviously.
Yeah, shout out to them.
It says it obviously.
Yeah,
obviously.
Are we just picking the games right now?
I mean, we're just going through the playoffs, and we can just talk about each matchup and whatnot, and basically give who we think will win, sort of like predictions. So on the AFC side, the Titans are facing the Ravens, a matchup of last year.
Oh boy,
you're starting on Sunday.
Does the Ravens have what it takes to over?
I know, right?
What's going on? What's going on? I'm losing my train of thought.
Sorry.
What were you saying? Something, Carlos?
Yeah,
no, we were just being snappy.
Oh,
yeah. I was saying that you were starting on the Sunday games and not the Saturday games.
No. I'm just going off the bracket you provided via Kirby on Sports podcast on Instagram.
Oh my Lord.
Great edits, by the way. So anyways, the Titans and the Ravens. Let's talk about that. The first game on the AFC side. Dan, my question to you. Do you think the Ravens have what it takes to beat this Titans team who beat you last year in the playoffs?
Well, I think it depends on if we get some players back on defense. We're still missing a couple guys in the secondary the last few weeks. If we get those guys back, I think we'll have a pretty good chance of stopping the pass. I think the big concern, and obviously with this Titans facing this Titans offense, Derrick Henry you got a key on him. The guy had 2,000 rushing yards this year.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of only 6 or 7 running backs in NFL history to do that. So I think defensively, it just depends on how well that defensive line plays. Last year, what really killed them early on in the game was they weren't able to get any sort of penetration at all, and Henry just ran all over him all day long, and that's what destroyed him from the start. And when they got behind multiple scores, it was really bad news, and the offense just got one dimensional. So I think the key on offense is just that. J.K. Dobbins has been one of the biggest additions for the Ravens this year on offense.
Mm-hmm.
He has been fantastic. So I think he gives us, I think he gives us a good chance to run the ball effectively against this team, traditionally. And then, of course, that opens up the play action and what Lamar is able to do with the football. They got away from that last year in this very matchup. They seemed to be so content on just straight dropbacks throwing the football, almost like they did about midway through this season before they finally started to let Lamar be Lamar, which is he's dangerous in open space. So, they played earlier this season and the Titans won it in overtime, and Derrick Henry had the game-winning touchdown as like a 40-some yard run. So, this is a very good matchup. I think you have two really good football teams who can run the ball effectively. I think Ryan Tannehill could be a big factor to watch out for in this game. I don't think he gets enough credit. So I think it just depends on how well our secondary plays. I do think we can win this game. And hopefully Lamar can finally put his playoff woes behind him, and the haters can at least be quiet for 5 minutes. So
the one key for this game, you have to contain Derrick Henry.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No joke. Sure. You have to contain Derrick Henry. That's only part of the matter.
It starts there, yeah. And
it starts there. If you can't contain Derrick Henry, kiss your playoff hopes goodbye.
Which is what we did last year. And getting pressure too with our linebackers and our pretty good defensive line. We've had some injuries there too. So if we can get healthy, we can get some of our players back by Sunday. I haven't really checked the injury report yet this week. I'm slacking a little bit, but I do think we'll have a pretty good shot. I think if we can slow down Derrick Henry, they'll have to, and hopefully they get behind, they'll have to throw it, and then we can get a turnover or two and flip the field. I think that'll be a big difference in this game.
Yeah, the key thing here is you guys have to keep you guys just have to build a lead big enough to where it causes Ryan Tannehill to have to win the game for you. If you guys keep it to a point where, Tennessee can just easily keep handing it off to Derrick Henry, it's going to be issues. Now, there is a situation going on in Tennessee right now, though, because the trainer did test positive for coronavirus. So they're doing they're doing some contact tracing right now. There's no real update on that. So some players may be out. We're not sure yet. But I mean, to keep this real short and simple, back to Kirby's question, does Baltimore have enough to win this game? Yes, they absolutely do. It just depends on Lamar just has to be Lamar. That's it. If he plays the way he normally plays, during the regular season and brings it into the playoffs, for sure. Baltimore can beat Tennessee easily, in my opinion. But again, Lamar has to get that monkey off his back. And he has to win this game. That way he can get that narrative off of, he's only good in the regular season. He's not great in the playoffs.
All right.
Totally agree.
So the next game, the Steelers and the Browns, obviously we touched on this earlier. Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, out with COVID. Ben Roethlisberger is back for the Steelers. So, I mean, it's a rematch. The Browns are going to Heinz Field. And yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I think
I agree.
Baker Mayfield and the Browns team wants this game. And could we possibly see a first-round exit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have recently been struggling?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
that's tough to say for me, but still, it's a valid question that I feel like the Browns are going to be hungry enough to give this Steelers team a run for their money. But I don't think the Browns will be able to pull it off.
No, I just think that Pittsburgh showed a sign of life in that game against the Colts a couple weeks ago. They were down 24-7, season on the line. Maybe not the season on the line, but certainly the division was on the line at that point. Because if they lose that game, this game the past weekend would have been for the AFC North. So, they came back. They scored. They rattled off. What was it? I guess it was 21 unanswered points to win that game. And Big Ben he looked like old Big Ben. I mean, we talked about this, when after the game happened, he just looked like old school Ben. I mean, he was hitting all of his receivers. He was calling his own plays. Apparently that was the big difference between what they saw towards, the second half of that Indianapolis game and what the Steelers had been doing previously, which was, Ben wasn't calling the plays. So this Steelers team, I think there's a big mystery here. Like how good are they? Because this was a team that was 11-0, and they were, surefire favorites to probably be able to challenge Kansas City for, at least in the standings at the time. I think a lot of people said they were pretenders, and then of course they lose three games in a row. I guess it was 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
No, it was 3 because they beat the Colts.
They lost. Yeah, they lost. Yeah. Because the 4th would have been last week.
Right.
No.
There's too many numbers.
Yeah. The season's been long.
Yes, it has.
But to me, I feel like Cleveland not having Stefanski, I feel like that's going to play a huge part in this. I really do. And that's how come I'm like, and also them barely being able to beat the JV squad of Pittsburgh. I don't know. I feel like Big Ben was finally throwing downfield. That's what was the big difference when Pittsburgh made the comeback against Indianapolis. The first half, they were still doing those little like short check down passes or whatever. And then finally the second half, Roethlisberger was just like, all right, let me just finally throw this thing downfield. I feel like they have, if Pittsburgh can get the running game going and then that opens up the passing game, Cleveland's got no shot here. If Cleveland can contain the running game and then they can stop the deep ball from being an issue, Cleveland's got a shot. And of course, that also depends on can Baker not make any mistakes. Ken Chubb and what's the other running back's name again? Kareem Hunt.
Oh, Kareem Hunt. Yeah.
Kareem Hunt. If Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb can get going and open things out, because then maybe they bring the defense in and they open it out for the receivers. Can Baker make the throws that they need to win? This is where the game gets very interesting for me, is what's going to happen, because now, again, you don't have your head coach. What's going to happen? I need to know. I can't wait to know. But I'm going Pittsburgh.
I think Pittsburgh has a better chance than Cleveland to win. Honestly, I think Cleveland's going to give it their very all, but I just don't see Cleveland upsetting Pittsburgh.
No.
All right. The Bills and the Colts. I'm happy for Phillip Rivers. I talked about a lot in the beginning of this season about how I felt like Phillip Rivers would be washed up and maybe not able to lead this Colts team to a playoff. But they made it to the playoffs, but the Bills are just too red hot at just the right time. And I think the Bills are going to take this game.
I don't know, man. I'm actually kind of scared of Indianapolis right now. If they give that Phillip Rivers being washed up, that's actually incredible to me, because I didn't think he was. I mean, it got a little dicey at the beginning with Jacksonville.
No, I said that at the beginning of the season before I saw his gameplay. Because I thought he was not going to do as well as he did with the Chargers. But he has since surprised me, and he looks like a quarterback that could lead this Colts team. I don't know how much longer he has in the tank, but still, he looks pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if Indianapolis does somehow pull off an upset here, because I'm pretty sure Stephon Diggs is injured. If I remember hearing that correctly. I know he didn't practice.
I did not hear anything about that, but that would be a huge loss for the Bills.
Yep, hold on. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, but because if
Yeah.
Stephon
Yes.
Diggs is out,
It said-
that's
it
one
said in-
weapon loss for Josh Allen.
Well, he didn't practice today, but he said, "quote I'm cool."
Yeah.
When he was asked about the
I'm
injury.
Cole Beasley
So,
also didn't practice today.
man, if they don't play, then I'd give the big upper hand to Indianapolis then for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Indy's defense is a really good defense. Like they're a very stout defense. Yeah. So I wouldn't put it past Indianapolis to pull off the upset here, but like you said, like Buffalo is red hot right now, and if they do get Stephon Diggs and they do get Cole Beasley, I do see that Buffalo probably wins this game and probably pretty comfortably, especially because they'll have fans in their stadium for the first time this season.
That's
Yeah,
going to be huge. That's going to be
agree.
a huge advantage because apparently they pulled some strings to get a limited number of fans in attendance for this playoff game.
money
It
talks,
won't be a-
baby. Money talks.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be, but it's not a lot of fans, and I guess that's why, because I think it's only something like
6,700, I believe.
yeah. So they'll be able to spread them out, throughout that stadium. Good. Look, Bills Mafia deserves to be here at this game. This is their first playoff game, and I don't know how long. When was the last time? No, last year they were in. But when was their last home playoff game?
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
I think it's like I don't know if it's the 90s, but it's pretty far back there.
Yeah, it might actually be the 90s. But yeah,
Let me do some research and I'll get back to you on that.
But yeah. Long story short, I'm gonna go with the Bills, but I do hold the right to say that Indianapolis can pull the upset here.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. I just think the Bills are too red hot. But still, if Indianapolis can pull it off, I would not be surprised either. I really would not.
Their last home playoff game was 1996 against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Holy
it's a
cow.
long time ago. So I was pretty much right. Crazy.
I like how we talked about the Colts and we didn't once mention Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah,
Man, he's really good.
Yeah.
yeah, he's an X factor in this game for sure. If he can get going, it's gonna be a long day for Buffalo.
Yeah, what was that? How long was that run he had last week? That was like 65 or 70 yards, right?
Yeah, I'll
It
say
was insane.
it was a good run. He's really good.
Yeah, and he's a young guy, so who knows what he
Young
can
dude.
do.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the AFC side of the playoff picture. The NFC, we touched on Washington versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we know who's going to win that game.
yeah, probably Tampa Bay, but Washington could maybe. There's a slim chance.
I do think there's a chance. I do.
There's a slim chance. It just
Some
depends,
teams
like,
have made Brady look super bad. Like, think about it, that first game against the Saints. Of course, he was just getting accustomed to his new team, but
Mhm.
they really made him look pretty bad, and then they kind of scored a garbage.
Well, like I said, the
Garbage
best
time.
way to beat Tom Brady is to put pressure on him. If
Yeah.
he does, if you can get pressure on him, which the Washington football team can,
They can.
then you guys have a legit shot. The question is just offense. Can Alex Smith get this offense going? That's going to be the question. I think he can, but he needs. But it's also how healthy is he going to be coming into this game?
Yeah, because we have seen, the Washington football team, and with Alex Smith, he just did not look that comfortable in like limited mobility in the pocket and stuff. And if he cannot get things going, I think Ron Rivera will turn to Taylor Heineke.
He'll have to.
I
but,
don't think they have much of a choice. I mean, we saw how slow Smith looked, especially at the end of the game. And going against this defense, you're going to have a quarterback who can at least move within the pocket. He can't really do much of that. So he's pretty much a statue in there. So, yeah, I don't know. It's really just a trial by error situation at the start of this game.
Yeah.
How does he come out and look? Is he able to move at all? If he's not able to move at all, obviously you have to make the change pretty early on in the game, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. I think that makes a big difference. I think if Alex Smith is healthier, I do give Washington a pretty good chance. I think if Heineke plays, I mean, I just don't see how they have a chance. Even if the defense is able to get turnovers,
Yeah, I mean, Washington has like maybe like what, a 5, maybe less than 5% chance of winning this game.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
The safe pick is Tampa Bay, but again, Washington has the tools to win it. It's just, can they implement those tools?
I'm not expecting much. I'm a
don't,
fan.
Don't expect to win, but if you do win, celebrate like hell.
Get excited, yeah, for sure.
Yes, celebrate like hell, because next week you're not going to win in the frozen tundra. You know for a fact.
No chance.
Well, who's to say that that's where you're going though? Because don't forget, Washington's number 4.
Yeah.
So the lowest seed goes to.
Oh yeah,
goes to
that's
Green
right.
Bay.
That's right.
So you would have to hope and pray for either the Bears to win or the Rams to win.
Ooh.
Yeah. Good luck with either of those things to happen, especially the Bears.
Bingo.
Yeah, they're screwed.
All right, the next game, the Seahawks and the Rams.
Is anybody excited for this game?
I think Russell Wilson and the Seahawks take it.
They just have so much experience.
Have not looked well recently.
No, they haven't looked good. I mean, you always have a shot because you have Aaron Darnold.
Yeah.
Aaron Darnold.
Darnold?
Aaron Donald. Yes.
Donald. Jesus. I'm thinking of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald on the defensive side.
Is that just me, or do you think the Rams just haven't looked well recently?
They've been struggling because of Jared Goff's injury.
Yeah.
Offensively. Offensively,
if
they've been
Jared
struggling.
Goff
Defensively, they've been playing great.
If he can't go next week, I don't know.
For this week, I don't know. I don't even know if I would want Jared Goff with a broken thumb.
John Wolford, not that much experience. So I mean in the pros, obviously, but still, if he gets the starting nod, you're gonna have to tailor this defense to make him. Excuse me, I said defense. I meant offense around Wolford. So you have a more simpler game plan so he can be successful. But I really feel like the odds are in the Seattle Seahawks' favor as of right now.
Yeah, and plus Seattle's been there before. Seattle's been there, done that, and with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. I just think there's too much going in their direction right now, and I think they've been, they haven't been talked about much in the media, and I think that's probably best that way. I think they prefer it that way. Everybody's talking about the Chiefs and of course Buffalo here recently in the AFC side, and in the NFC side, everybody's talking about the old men of the NFC of Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. Yeah, don't forget Brady too. They're talking about the Buccaneers a lot. So there's not a lot of airtime for Seattle, and I think they're kind of slept on, and I do think it kind of rises to their favor in this situation.
Well, I mean, I think they're kind of slept on because of just their recent performance. Like, think about it. They only won by 3 points last week against the 49ers.
That's true.
I mean, you go back. Let me find them real quick. The Seahawks. Where are you? Yeah, against the Rams. I mean, they played a pretty boring game, 20-9, and that was Jared Goff with the broken thumb. They just haven't. At the beginning of the season, they were letting Russ cook, but like now, it just feels like, I don't know. This Seahawks team is. They still have like that kind of aura to them that they did like at the beginning of this whole Pete Carroll thing with the Legion of Boom and all that, but like they're not that team anymore. To me, I think Seattle's going to win this game. Like I don't think LA, if they have Jared Goff with a broken thumb, I don't think he really can do much to beat Seattle. So my pick would be Seattle, but do I see like Seattle making a run to the Super Bowl? No, I think that they'll lose and probably the next round.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I agree with you, but I really don't think the Rams have it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so the Saints and the Bears, do we need to touch on this one?
All right, let's say, hold on. On 3, everybody say who's going to win. 1, 2, 3.
Saints. Okay.
Moving on.
No chance. No
the
chance.
Bears stink.
They don't deserve to be in there.
Whoever's starting at quarterback, Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky,
it's going to be Trubisky.
I don't think there's a shot.
Maybe they'll do the old Miami shuffle, and we'll see a couple drives here, a couple drives there.
Hold on. Foles does play his best when he's coming off the bench.
That is true.
Uh-oh.
if any past playoffs are any
Playoffs.
example.
I mean, he did.
He's
lead,
made two run. He's made a run to the Super Bowl and won. So
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
he
you
now has a
can't
statue outside
discredit
of the
that, but
stadium.
still, he's on a completely
Mhm.
different team than he was with Philly.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
for
no,
sure.
no. Listen, we're not going to argue the point. The Saints are going to beat the brakes off of the Bears. You know, it's going to.
I think they win by 20. I mean, the line right now is for them to win by 10, but I mean, I got them as 20.
Yeah, you know what?
20.1.
I'll probably take it with you. I think they'll win by 22.
Yep. They're just
Huh?
they're just too good. And even if Drew Brees is a little banged up, it doesn't matter.
A little banged up, washed up, has a noodle arm, is going to work for NBC next year. You know, they can still win.
Yeah. So we set the scene for you for the NFL playoffs. It's going to be exciting, and we will be right here next week discussing all the big matchups and all the results of Super Wild Card Weekend with the expanded playoffs.
Mhm.
There are triple headers on Saturday and Sunday. So that's
Is
going to
anybody
be
going to
really
watch the
exciting.
game? Is anybody going to watch the game on Nickelodeon?
No, I'm not planning on it.
I might check it out just to see what it's like, but I will be going back to the normal.
I don't
broadcast.
I don't understand what the purpose of putting a game on Nickelodeon is.
That's what I'm saying. I want to see. Like, I want
They're
to see.
This
the
is
trying-
just
they're-
like Amazon Prime
No,
exclusively.
this is
No, no,
different.
no, no, no,
This
no.
is different because they have the
What
regular
happened?
CBS broadcast, but they're also doing, I guess you'd call it a simulcast per
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
trying to reach a young audience. So they're gonna put slime and they're gonna put SpongeBob's face probably in the goalposts, and they're gonna probably do some really weird shit. To be honest with you, but what
I'll
we
check.
might see it as weird. 6-year-old kids might like it. So yeah,
Maybe get
I
them
don't know.
watching football, but I don't know.
What
That's
game?
gonna be really interesting.
What game is that supposed to be? Is that the Browns Steelers game that's supposed to be on?
No. It's whichever game is on CBS. So that would be. Oh, that's a good question. I'm not 100% certain.
That would be on I believe Sunday, the Bears in the Saints.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's probably what channel it belongs on.
Yeah.
because the Saints are going to cartoon the Bears out of the stadium.
I believe it is the Bears and the Saints. I believe Carlos is getting us that information, but I think it's
So
Yes.
great.
Yes,
That's
it
so
is the
great.
Bears and the Saints.
yeah. So
God.
And
I
Tony-
might
and
tune in on
Tony
Nickelodeon
Romo will
just
not
for
be in
hell
the
of it.
stadium.
Yeah, because
All
he
right.
has COVID.
Yeah, he has COVID. So they might do a Kirk Street and just have him like report in like from like his house.
Who knows? That's going to be
He's
really
like,
interesting.
Jim. That's my Tony Romo impression.
All right. So we set the scene for you for Super Wild Card Weekend. You can catch us here next week. Before we wrap things up, though, Carlos has a very special announcement for the Kirby on Sports podcast listeners.
You should have to set it up that way.
It's very
You
formal.
You said you wanted to. How do you want me to set
I
it
mean,
up?
yeah, but I could have done it. You could have been like, do you have any fun thoughts? But
There you go.
whatever. Yeah,
We're
well,
putting you on full blast, Carlos, okay?
I mean, we'll make
Because
it
you
short and
deserve
sweet.
this.
Okay, hold on. I'll make it short and sweet. We don't have to drag this out for too long. Yeah, I'm back in the social media world. I have launched a new graphic design page. It's called Chief Graphics. Chief Graphic Design. Of course, named it after my dog, Chief. Yeah, so go ahead and follow it. It's on, if you follow my old SHS Graphics account, I have it in like the story highlights thing. It's down there. You just click the link, or you search up at SHS. Wow. You search at Chief_graphics. And yeah, just follow me there, and I'll be putting up some work there. I'll also still be posting up some stuff on on the Kirby on Sports podcast Instagram account. Well, that was a mouthful to say. And yeah, we're back in the game.
back in the game. You're not on Twitter yet, though, so we still can't
And
tag
you
on-
got to accept my friend request, Carlos. I'm waiting.
Yeah, me.
You might be waiting a long time because I don't go on the Facebook.
Oh my God. I've
The
never heard
Facebook
someone
is
call
my
it.
friend.
Carlos, I want to commend you. Follow Chief_graphics on Instagram for
Got it.
all your graphic design needs, because I will recommend Carlos to you 150%. Carlos, congratulations, man.
Thanks. You know, we only do what is it, Dan? What were we saying earlier in the beginning of the podcast?
What?
It does your honeydews that your honey don'ts.
That's right.
Regroup Building
That's
Services.
Chief Graphics, ladies and gentlemen.
Chief Graphics also does the honeydews that your honey don'ts.
And we make your honeydews look good.
Shout out to Sean Hibbard, Regroup Building Services there. All right, that wraps up another edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast. For Carlos and Dan, I'm Josh. Until next week, we would like to thank our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, and Shenandoah Primitives. Big thanks, as always, to MPT9 Productions, Dave Johnson, and Productions by Quet for all their support as well. Until the next episode, to recap Wild Card Weekend, we say create greatness, and we will catch you next time. Peace out.